What's going on, Not Move Nation? Welcome to the Not Move podcast. Today is November 30th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you to the supporters, subscribers, and followers. We really appreciate you guys. Also, thank you to our sponsors, BetUS, MyBookie.ag, Walmart.com, Open Goal, the MLB and NFL Pro Shops, and W Energy Drinks. All right. First and foremost, let's talk about some weather here today. Looking at rotogrinders.com, ROTO grinders.com, their weather report. I think they do a great job with reporting any weather concerns. So let's see what we got here. San Francisco at Cleveland. Sustained winds around 25 miles per hour with wind gusts around 35 miles per hour, which can impact some longer throws and kicks, is what they're saying here. Rams at Carolina. Some light rain is possible, though it doesn't look like a total washout, is what they're saying. Winds stay light around 10 miles per hour maximum. Atlanta at New York Jets. A steady light rain early. And then another round of rain. It should taper off there for a little bit. And then another round of rain likely late in the game. They're saying it's going to be wet, but not a true downpour. Winds 10 miles per hour max. Could cause for some slick conditions. Saints at Dolphins, a rain shower or a spotty downpour is possible. Winds 10 to 15 miles per hour. Buffalo at Pittsburgh, rain looks clear during the game. Winds likely over 15 miles per hour early in the game, gusts around 30 miles per hour, and then winds should decrease a little bit throughout as the game progresses. Might have some 25 mile per hour gusts near the end of the game. It's also cold there. They're saying mid 30 degrees. I think that could be another advantageous split that we look into. You know, sometimes I look into like turf versus grass splits and home versus away splits for certain players. I think, temperature splits is could take us to another level here. We're getting into those colder months now, so maybe some of these players are not too good in the cold weather, or that they're even better in colder weather. Denver at Washington tonight. Looks like there's going to be some wind gusts. Let's see, maybe around 30 miles per hour is what they're saying at times. So that could impact some longer throws or kicks. All right, so let's go through some injury updates for today's slate. I'm looking at the FanDuel Daily Fantasy app. I think they have maybe like a partnership or something with rotogrinders.com, because their player injury updates are identical at times. So I think they do a pretty good job, a really good job with player injury updates. First guy on the list here, Baker Mayfield. Questionable due to a shoulder injury, but is likely to play, is what I'm seeing. Drake London, knee issue, wide receiver for the Falcons, has been ruled out. By the way, in case you guys don't know, Baker Mayfield, quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's who I mentioned first. Questionable with a shoulder issue, but likely to play. Then Drake London. Bucky Irving, running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Shoulder/foot injury, is questionable to play, but is expected to suit up. I think he's missed some time, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, his last game that he played was September 28th against Philadelphia, so he's missed quite some time. Even if he does suit up in this game, I would try to find some. If you're interested in this game or interested in Bucky Irving, I would see if he's going to be limited at any capacity. Sometimes when players, miss several months, that they could be limited in that first game back or their first few games back. So Chris Olave, wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints, is questionable with a back injury, but is expected to play. Marvin Harrison Jr., appendix. I think he had surgery. So he's expected to play today. I think he's missed a couple games. His last game was November 9th. So I would see if he would be limited at any capacity there. J.J. McCarthy, quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, has been ruled out due to a concussion. So it looks like rookie Max Brosmer, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Do the best I can with these pronunciations. But yeah, rookie Max Brosmer will make his first NFL start in that game. Tyler Warren, questionable with an illness today. He is the tight end for the Indianapolis Colts. He's been doing great this season. So if he's unable to go today, that could be a big downgrade for the Colts. So we'll try to keep up to date with that as the show progresses. Alvin Kamara, running back for the New Orleans Saints, out today. Looks like Devin Neal is going to fill in that lead running back spot for the Saints. I don't know much about Devin Neal, but what I do know is that he used to play for the Kansas Jayhawks. So for you Jayhawks fans out there, we'll look into that a little bit later on, but he's going up against a weak rush defense. So I could see him maybe having a good game. Obviously, Michael Penix Jr. is still out, quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. Zonovan Knight, running back for the Arizona Cardinals, questionable due to a knee injury, but is expected to suit up. Dalton Kincaid, tight end for the Buffalo Bills, is questionable with a hamstring issue today. Joshua Palmer, wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, is questionable to play in this game today. Tyler Higbee still out for the Rams. Okongwu, tight end for the Tennessee Titans, is questionable due to a foot injury, but is expected to play. Michael Mayer, tight end for the Las Vegas Raiders, backup tight end to Brock Bowers. He will not play today due to an ankle issue. Jerome Ford, running back for the Cleveland Browns, backup for Judkins, is questionable to play today due to a hamstring issue. Torrey Horton, wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, is still out, it looks like. Curtis Samuel, wide receiver for the Bills, out. Tutu Atwell. Still on the IR, wide receiver for the Rams. And that looks like about it for the most notable injuries. There's some other injuries here and there on the offensive side of the ball. I don't really look into the defensive injuries a whole lot unless I have time, which I just didn't this week. With it being Thanksgiving week and all that, I had a lot of stuff going on. I crammed in a lot of this research that I'll be talking about today, yesterday, and this morning. So, hopefully you guys understand. But we're still going to talk about some good stuff here today. If you guys have any questions about any specific player props, feel free to let me know, or any game in particular that you want me to cover, feel free to let me know. I'm not necessarily here to give you guys picks. I mean, I'll give you which way I'm leaning towards, but I'm really here to just hang out with you guys and give you guys some information that you may not have had, before you tuned in. So let's see. Hey, Judy. Hey, good morning, Blessed Up P. Let's see. What game do we want to talk about first? Being a Cowboys fan, Deion Sanders used to play with the Cowboys. That's kind of when I became a Cowboys fan. So I'm excited to see, Shedeur Sanders today against San Francisco. Not necessarily the first game I want to talk about, but I am hoping the best for Shedeur Sanders for sure. The Rams game? Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go cover that one first. Like I said, guys, my research time was limited this week, but we'll still talk about some good stuff here. So, Rams at Carolina. This game is being played on turf for any of you that are interested in those turf versus grass splits. Carolina leads the all-time series 13-10 against the Rams. Matt Stafford, quarterback for the Rams, has a 3-3 career record against Carolina. Matt Stafford, his over-under on passing yards is 251.5, but he needs 154 passing yards to move into 8th place on the all-time passing yards leaders list. He would pass Matt Ryan if he got 154 passing yards today. Also, Devontae Adams, wide receiver for the Rams, needs 2 receiving touchdowns to move into 7th place on the all-time receiving touchdowns leaders list. He would pass Antonio Gates. Also, Devontae Adams, wide receiver for the Rams, needs just 2 touchdowns. So if he got one by, a rushing touchdown, on the odd chance that he gets a rushing touchdown today, But he needs 2 touchdowns total to move into 15th place on the all-time touchdowns leaders list. He would pass Antonio Gates and John Riggins on that list. Now, last that I checked, the Rams were favored by 10 points, and the over-under is 45.5. The Rams do have a better record against the spread this season than Carolina, and the Rams are 8-3 against the spread. Carolina 7-5 against the spread. But the Rams are also 3-0 against the spread as a road favorite, whereas Carolina's 3-1, which is still respectable. Carolina's 3-1 against the spread as a home underdog. Now the Rams carry a 9-2 record into this matchup, having won 6 games in a row. They beat Tampa Bay 34-7 last week, and then Carolina's on a 1-game losing streak as they lost to the San Francisco 49ers 20-9 last week. Ivan says, I'm going to run it back again. Chuba Hubbard over 16.5 rushing yards. I also took 18.5 on DK. Yeah, so Hubbard's gone over the 18.5 line in 7 out of 10 games this season. He's had 10-plus rushing yards in 10 out of 10 games this season. If you guys were looking for an alternate line with Hubbard, and there's going to be some other things I'm going to talk about with Hubbard here. I'm looking at my notes last week and seeing if there were any splits that I saw with him that could have been advantageous for us today. Not really seeing anything that I wrote down last week, but if you go to ESPN.com, I do have some players splits uh, on some games today, some players, but with Hubbard, I don't have anything right now. I'm kind of looking right this second. Looks like he has more rushing yards. That's an inconsistent split, really. Maybe the turf versus grass splits. Let me just check this out real quick. Turf versus grass. Looks like some inconsistencies with his turf versus grass splits, home versus away splits, and other splits that I'm seeing here. But, the Rams allow the eighth fewest rushing yards to running backs this season. They actually ranked 12th before the week started in rushing yards allowed per game. So they have an above average rush defense. Same with their pass defense, though. It's pretty solid. They rank 13th in passing yards allowed per game. Carolina has a pretty balanced play calling style. They rank 19th in passing play percentage. So they do call a higher percentage of rushing plays relative to other teams in the league, but not by much. It'd be nice to see like Hubbard versus Rams statistics. I think I looked at that this morning, and it took me to statmuse.com, and he didn't get a whole lot of playing time. I think he had seeing that he's had 6 rushing yards against them. Let me just see real quick if I can see, because he's only played 5 seasons. Should take me just a second here to see if he's ever played the Rams before. Yeah, I hope you guys are having a great morning. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving week. Thank you for joining today. Yeah, he had only 2 carries and 6 rushing 2 carries and 6 rushing yards in his only career game against the Rams. Didn't have a touchdown in that game. Who did he play last week? He played against San Francisco, who last week San Francisco was a little weaker against that run than, at least to that running back position. Rushing yards allowed to running backs. The Niners were a little bit weaker last week than the Rams. And what did he get against the Niners? 16. I think it's cutting it close, man. But I don't see anything that makes me want to just steer you away from that play. I think it's going to be close, though. I'd have to lean towards it going over too. But yeah, weather is very important today for sure, man. And did we mention? We did mention that this game has some light rain possibilities. Excuse me. Yeah, the winds are supposed to be a little light in this one, but looks like there could be some slick conditions, which makes me, like ball carriers a little bit more in this one, typically. Not saying that, players can't pass in bad weather, but yeah, man, you're right about that. Looks like there's going to be some rain in this one. I mentioned Matt Stafford needs 154 passing yards to move into 8th place on the all-time passings leaders list. He would pass Matt Ryan. Carolina ranks 15th in passing yards allowed per game this season, and Carolina ranks 19th in rushing yards allowed per game. So Carolina is weaker relative to other teams in the league in rushing yards allowed per game than passing yards allowed per game. But the Rams accumulate more passing yards per game relative to other teams in the league. And there's really not a big difference between Carolina's passing and rushing yards allowed per game. The Rams have a pretty balanced play calling style, very balanced. They rank 16th in passing play percentage, so right in the middle. And, with that rain today, you could see the Rams call a few more rushing plays than what they're used to. Also, they're favored by 10 points. So, being favored by 10 points, to me, there's a bigger likelihood that the Rams run away with this game, are up, pretty big in the third quarter, fourth quarter, and opt to run the ball a little bit more. But just because that line is 10, doesn't mean that it will happen, right? I mean, in Carolina, once again, they've been pretty solid against the spread this season, and 3-1 against the spread as a home underdog. So maybe they do keep it relatively close. I know they're probably hungrier for a win today than the Rams are. Not saying the Rams are not, but Carolina's 6-6, and they're on a one-game losing streak. This is a big game for Carolina, The Rams could afford to lose this. They're 9-2. They're on a 6-game win streak. But yeah, Matthew Stafford, over under 251.5 passing yards. He's gone over that line in 6 out of 11 games this season. If you're looking for an alternate line, he's had the 225-plus passing yards in 7 out of 11 games this season. 200-plus passing yards in 7 out of 11 games this season as well. And then 175-plus passing yards in 10 out of 11 games this season. He's gone over the 251.5 in 3 out of 6 career games against Carolina. I wonder what about the alternate lines? I think I would have wrote it down if they were – okay, here we go. So Matt Stafford has had 200-plus passing yards in 5 out of 6 career games against Carolina, according to statnews.com. And his lowest total he's ever had against Carolina is 178. So I think there's a real good chance that he hits that 154 passing yard mark today. And then obviously 175, I feel like it's pretty comfortable there. And then, passing touchdowns, he's had 1+ passing touchdown in 5 out of 6 career games against Carolina, 2+ in 2 out of 6 career games against Carolina. And he also had a 5-touchdown passing game against Carolina in one of those games. Now, Carolina does allow the 12th most passing yards to quarterbacks this season. So, yeah, I mean, I would have to lean towards Stafford getting that today. Obviously, a concern would be that the Rams run away with this one, and he doesn't have to pass a lot. But, kind of thinking Carolina, with as hungry as I suspect them to be, having that 6-6 record, I'm kind of thinking Carolina hangs around. Let's talk about Nakua, wide receiver for the Rams. Now, Carolina has limited receiving yards to wide receivers and receptions to wide receivers pretty decently this season. Carolina ranks 12th best in receiving yards allowed to wide receivers and 9th best in receptions allowed to wide receivers. But the reason why I'm starting with Puka Nakua first instead of Devontae Adams, well, there is no reason. Actually, I thought I did see throughout my research that Carolina has allowed the 6th most 40+ yard receptions this season. Nakua hasn't had any 40+ yard receptions, but Devontae Adams and Whittington have had one apiece. So let's start with Adams. And I already mentioned that Adams needs 2 touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns to hit a milestone, or just 2 touchdowns in general to hit another milestone. Devontae Adams, over under 55.5 receiving yards. He's gone over this line in 7 out of 11 games this season. He's had 50+ receiving yards in 8 out of 11 games this season. 40+ in the same amount that he's had 50+, 8 out of 11 games. He's had 30+ receiving yards in 10 out of 11 games this season. If you're looking for a safer play, Adams, 30+ receiving yards. Once again, 10 out of 11 games this season. He's gone over that. And then He's gone over the 55.5 receiving yard line in 3 out of 6 career games against Carolina. He's had 40-plus receiving yards in 5 out of 6 games against Carolina. And then he's scored exactly 1 touchdown in 2 out of 6 career games against Carolina. Now, when I'm looking at pro-football-reference.com, Davante Adams leads the entire NFL in red zone targets. And when I'm looking at the red zone statistics here, the Rams rank second best in red zone attempts per game. Carolina ranks 11th in red zone attempts allowed per game. So, Rams have a pretty decent advantage there. Also, when the Rams are getting into the red zone, they're converting touchdowns pretty good. One moment, please. I got to get a drink. The Rams, they rank 6th best in the NFL in red zone conversion rate. And what I mean is that they're converting touchdowns when they enter that red zone at a high rate. Carolina's defense has been pretty solid in holding their opponents from not just entering the red zone, but converting touchdowns as well. But the Rams offense ranks better instead of that Carolina defense. So, yeah, I'm thinking that red zone attack here for the Rams today could be a good spot to target. Now, I want to see where Carolina's vulnerable at. They've allowed a good chunk of rushing touchdowns to running backs this season. So if you like Kyron Williams, who's never played against Carolina throughout his career, but if you like Kyron Williams or maybe Blake Corum for an anytime touchdown today, I could see that. But I want to see where Carolina has been the most vulnerable relative to other teams in the league in allowing touchdowns. I want to see Matt Stafford's rushing statistics against Carolina. I want to see if he's ever, snuck into the end zone against Carolina. Not something I'm going to spend a whole lot of time trying to research if I can't find it real quick. Let's see. No, he hasn't had a rushing touchdown, but I just thought I'd look real quick because Carolina's allowed 3 rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks this season. Not a ton, but it was worth looking up. What about wide receiver touchdowns allowed by Carolina? They've done good in preventing wide receiver touchdowns. So I think with that spread being the way it is, I'm looking at tight end too. I think that with that spread, with the way it is, I mean, maybe if you like Parkinson for some reason, Colby Parkinson, anytime touchdown, I could see possibly. But yeah, I'm just going to have to go with the chalk here with, probably Kyron Williams. It's going to be, Parkinson actually has 10 red zone targets this season. He ranks 2nd on the Rams. That's interesting. Carolina, they have been vulnerable relative to other teams in the league in allowing tight end touchdowns. They've allowed 5 this season. The Bengals have allowed 13 tight end receiving touchdowns this season. But then the next most, receiving touchdowns allowed is San Francisco and Pittsburgh, some other teams with 7. So I think Parkinson could be maybe a sneaky play here. How many touchdowns does Parkinson have this season? And I know he probably, hasn't had a ton of playing time, but look, man, Parkinson has had a touchdown in his last 3 games. I would say, that would be my favorite pass catching. It's tough to go against Davante Adams. No, let's not get crazy here. I mean, just relative to the other teams in the league, though, Carolina's prevented those touchdowns from wide receivers pretty well. But let's not get crazy here. But yeah, my first touchdown look would be Kyron Williams for the Rams, and then Devontae Adams, and then Colby Parkinson. I accidentally put Stafford in a slip for 0.5 rushing yards. Now I'm going to sweat this game. 0.5 rushing yards for Stafford. Carolina's allowed the third fewest rushing yards to quarterbacks this season. But you're not asking for a lot, right? You're asking for one rushing yard, which he's gone over in 4 out of 6 career games against Carolina. I'm not going to take the time to look at like his splits or anything like that, but I'm rooting for you, man. I'm rooting for you. Rico Dowdle over under 18.5 receiving yards. Let's go take a look here. I do expect, with that line being the way it is, that the Panthers have to pass the ball a little bit more today, call a higher percentage of passing plays than they're used to. Rams, they rank, I talked about how they have a pretty balanced defense. They rank 13th in passing yards allowed per game. They rank 12th in rushing yards allowed per game. So they're pretty decent on both sides of the ball defensively. Dowdle, I just didn't get my usual time to look into these props, but he's gone over. What line did you have? 18.5. Let me fix my line here. I had 17.5. I just don't have any information there, but he's gone over that line and the 18.5 receiving yard line and 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 12 games this season. So he's gone over that line in 4 out of 12. Now, he did go over in his last 2 games, but those were on the road. He's at home today. But he has gone over that line twice at home this season against Miami and Dallas. And then I'm going to try to look to see where the Rams are vulnerable in regards to yards allowed. It looks like they locked down the tight end the best, but it looks like they're about the same against receivers and running back receiving yards allowed, just about the same. We talked about potential bad weather that could cause for some dump-offs, right? I'd really be interested in the Dowdle splits. I'm going to look at my notes last week to see if I have Dowdle splits available here. What I do have is that Dowdle has more yards per catch when his team wins or ties rather than loses in every season that he's played in. So I would give Dowdle a bigger likelihood of getting 19 or more receiving yards if the Panthers win this game. But if they do not win this game, I'm going to have to lean towards them not going over that. Then Leggett over 22.5 receiving yards over under. Didn't have a chance to look into Leggett. But you had him at 22.5. That's what I saw him at as well. Let's just go see how many times he's gone over that this season. I'll have to do a little bit more research on the fly today. This was one game that I didn't have a whole lot done. But I'll be much more prepared next week, hopefully, unless something happens. But yeah, 23 plus receiving yards for Leggett. 1, 2, 3. He's gone over that line in 3 out of 10 games this season. But if we took that hook off, Ivan, if somehow you can get that hook off to make it 22 plus receiving yards, he's had exactly 22 receiving yards in 2 games this season. So you're increasing your, the amount of games that he's gone over that by 2 with taking that hook off. He's had 22 plus receiving yards in 5 out of 10 games this season. I also want to know the target share for Carolina. It's going to be McMillan for sure. And then, Leggett. Okay. I'd be looking for that possession guy maybe, just because of the weather, and the Rams do a good job at limiting opponent yards per completion. They rank 3rd best in the NFL. So I don't know, man. I think I'd rather lean towards McMillan again here today. I liked him in Carolina's last game, and I think I'd have to lean towards McMillan again here today. Now, McMillan's gone over his 56.5 receiving line in 7 out of 12 games this season, compared to Leggett going over his in only 3 out of 10 games this season. And even if we took that hook off with Leggett, and we got him at 5 out of 10 at 22 plus receiving yards this season, McMillan still, has gone over in a higher percentage of his games this season than Leggett. Now, McMillan, if we took him for 50 plus, we're still looking at 7 out of 12 games that he's gone over that this season. But 40 plus, now we're looking at 9 out of 12 games where McMillan's had 40 plus receiving yards. And then he's had 30 plus receiving yards in 10 out of 11 games this season. So I think, with him being that leader in target share, right? And for this being a really big game for Carolina, sure, any given Sunday, right? Anything can happen. But if I'm Carolina, I'm really looking to utilize my best players in this one, So, I'd have to lean more towards Leggett there. What else here? That's about, all I really have for this game. Overall, I give the Rams a big passing advantage. Carolina, a good-sized rushing advantage, believe it or not. They've done great at running the ball this season, picking up yardage. The Rams, though, big 3rd down conversion advantage, a big red zone conversion advantage, a big red zone attempts per game advantage, a big sacks on the quarterback advantage, and a big turnover differential advantage. I mean, the Rams obviously are a very dangerous team. And, I think the way Carolina wins this game, if they do win, I got to still go with the Rams to at least win this one. Right. But I think the recipe for success for Carolina today is running the ball, doing what they do best, running the ball. They rank 11th in rushing yards per game compared to their ranking 27th in passing yards per game. So, I think they got to stick with what they know best, what they do best. But that's tough against, the Rams if you're down by 10 points at halftime to continue running the ball, So I think Carolina's got to jump out early if they have a chance in this one. I know this is this is a big game for Carolina, and they've been playing with some heart. Just by the end of the season last year, Let me go check out the NFL standings real quick. It's getting near that time, where we start looking at this playoff picture. And, the Rams have that top spot. The Bears are breathing down the Rams' neck here for that top spot. So this is definitely not a game that the Rams, I mean, yes, they can afford to lose, but Pretty sure that they want to definitely hold on to that 1 seed. The Panthers, if they drop this one, they'll be 6-7, and the Niners are in that 7 seed at 8-4. Man, this is I'm not gonna, I do expect the Rams to win this one, but yeah, give me Carolina plus 10 in this game. Texans versus Colts. CJ Stroud is back. He better do well, or he's about to lose his job at that number 1 spot. Yeah, let's go look at it. Yeah, the Colts pass defense is weak, if I'm not mistaken. The Colts pass defense ranks 28th in passing yards allowed per game. So yeah, you're absolutely right, man. This is definitely a game where CJ Stroud's got to show up, show out. Over under 234.5 passing yards. Last that I checked, the Colts have allowed the 6th most passing yards to quarterbacks this season when I checked before the week started. And this is the Colts' biggest weakness defensively. The Colts have defended against that run very well. They rank 6th in rushing yards allowed per game. And Houston actually has more ranks better in passing yards per game. So this is actually a good matchup for the Texans, just because I think the Texans have a better chance against a team with a bad pass defense and a good rush defense than the other way around. A good pass defense and a bad rush defense, because this is what the Colts do best in regards to passing yards per game relative to other teams in the league. And the Texans call a high percentage of passing plays relative to other teams in the league. They rank 10th in passing play percentage. So yeah, let's go look at CJ Stroud's pass attempts. And if anybody else has any other questions about any props, feel free to let us know. If you guys like anything today, feel free to let us know. Who do you guys got in the Texans and Colts game today? I'm thinking Colts are a much better team, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about it here. I think Houston could maybe surprise some people in this one. Passing attempts allowed by Indianapolis this season to quarterbacks. I mean, yeah, Ivan, they've allowed the 4th most passing attempts. Let me get out my calculator here. 422 passing attempts to quarterbacks, and we'll divide that by the amount of games that they've played. So they're per game. The Colts are allowing 38.36 pass attempts per game. And then CJ Stroud, we need to go look at. I'm going to add up all of his pass attempts. And I don't know what line you gave me. I'm just going to see if I can come up with a line by myself here. 27 plus 24 plus 38 plus 28 plus 27 plus 49 plus 39. Was he injured in that game against Denver? If he was, yeah, he was in the second quarter. So I don't want to count that game against him because he only had 10 passing attempts. So I'm not going to count that game against him. And I won't divide. I'll leave that game out when I divide the 232 passing attempts that he's had this season. I'll divide that by 7 to get 33, Stroud 33.14 pass attempts. And then I'll add that number with the 38.36 that the Colts are allowing and divide that by 2. So you get about 35, 36 pass attempts for Stroud. Just based on that calculation alone, obviously we can get more specific, but let's see what you had his line at, or what his line actually is. Let's go take a look for pass attempts. Usually I think it's pretty close, to what I calculate. Looking at 34, 34 plus at minus 115 on DK. I got him at 35, 36 pass attempts today. 33.5 over under at minus 115. Obviously, there's some other stuff we could look at, like his turf versus grass splits and stuff like that, home versus away. I think the fact that he's going up against, a really bad pass defense. I feel like the Texans will have to throw the ball in order to be successful today. I think this is a good game to do that in. And the fact that they're 3.5-point underdogs. I mean, one would think that they, have to play a little catch up at some point in this game. We're at many points in this game. I think that looks pretty solid there, Ivan. Bettors, which running back do you like in this game for the Texans? Marks or Chubb? Let's see. I did mention Indianapolis's rush defense is really good, but just because you're going up against a good rush defense doesn't necessarily mean that you can't pick up some good yardage here. Woody Marks over, under 54.5 rushing yards. He's gone over that line in 4 out of 11 games this season. Even if we took that to 50 plus, we're still looking at 4 out of 11 games this season as well. Once we get to 40 plus rushing yards, we're looking at 5 out of 11 games, 30 plus 5 out of 11 games, 20 plus 8 out of 11 games. Whereas Nick Chubb has gone over his 18.5 rushing line in 8 out of 11 games this season. He's had 10 plus in all 11 games this season. I'm just based on that alone, I'm thinking Nick Chubb. Also, we're entering those later stages in the NFL season. Houston, I mean, they're definitely hungry for a win right now with that 6-5 record against, they got the 8 seed. They're on the bubble right now. Yeah, I know Woody Marks is good and everything, but and his rushing yard total is 54.5, right? So they're expecting him to get more rushing yards than Nick Chubb. But if I'm Houston today and I'm running the ball, I'm doing it with a veteran, that can take care of the ball, that has been there, has that experience, and in a playoff-like feel game, playoff-like feel game for Houston. Nick Chubb versus Colts statistics. I'm sure we'll find Nick Chubb's done good against the Colts if he's played against them throughout his career, which I'm sure he probably has. It doesn't look like it's going to be just available as quick. That information is available as quick as I want. But Nick Chubb doesn't have the role that he once did in the NFL, right? So I wouldn't be, completely shocked. In fact, I expect him to have gone over this line if he's ever played the Colts in any career game besides maybe his rookie season. I'm browsing his game log right now, and I don't see that he's played the Colts at all. He's never played against the Colts. Now, what did we say? This game is being played on turf. So I kind of want to know, and where is it at? In Indianapolis. So I kind of want to know his turf versus grass splits here. I'm sure we'll probably find some inconsistencies, but let's just look real quick with Chubb. Yeah, it's back and forth between throughout his career. What about Woody Marks this season though? Because he's a rookie, right? I'm gonna just go look at Woody Marks's turf versus grass splits this season. He has more yards per carry on grass than turf. So yeah, I mean, I'm leaning towards Chubb today, man. Not just necessarily statistically on going over his line, but also just that's how I'm feeling instinctively. His line is now at 33.5. Nick Chubb. What? I've seen, if you guys like player props, man, I would look at these player props right when they drop these lines, man. I see these lines getting bumped up, especially if you like taking the over on player props. I see these lines jump up a lot from the time that they open and close. Oh, I think you were talking about Stroud, right? Yeah, Stroud. So, but yeah, but even just with other player props too. I mean, I've seen lines jump up a lot from the time they open. So I took the Colts under team total under 25.5. Says Ivan. He believes he altered it. Let's go. Let's go take a look at some stuff here. Sounds good, man. So, and I'm glad that you're bringing a lot of this up because some of these games I just don't have, a lot of readily information available. I do have some player props that I'll go over in this game that I am prepared for. But yeah, let's look at that team total. Let's look at the team total. So we'll go to team props here, and I'm seeing that the Colts over under team total is 23.5. I won't do this for every game, but the way I like to start off with team totals is, looking at points per game. Points per game, Indianapolis Colts are playing at home. They rank first in the NFL in points per game at home. 34.2 points per game at home. But points allowed per game, Houston allows the fewest on the road. 16.8 allowed. So let's divide that by what do we got? 34.2 plus 16.8. Divide that by 2. We're looking at 25.5 points for the Colts based on that statistic alone. Now, I'll go look at the Texans versus Colts history, right? And I want to know how many points per game the Colts have scored in the last few games that they've played Houston in Indianapolis. They scored 27, 19, 31, 31, 27 out of the last 5. I think 5 is a decent sample size when we're looking at this stuff. 27 plus 19. Usually the bigger the sample size, the better. But We get 27 points based on that. And then 27, plus 25.5 divided by 2. I'm seeing like 26.25 points for the Colts today. So probably like somewhere between 24 and 27. Just based on that alone. But I think that, we also have to consider that Houston's got to be real hungry for a win in this one. So, maybe you found some other stuff that you like about it, but Giants are going to beat the Patriots tomorrow. Yeah, man. It seems like the Giants have had their numbers since, Eli Manning and Brady and those Super Bowl matchups. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that game as well, man. That'd be great. That'd be great to see. Is Winston starting at quarterback tomorrow? Dart looks like Dart is back. Cool. Yeah, I think that Dart gives him the best chance to win. But yeah, I'm glad I got to see Winston shine a little bit this year. But let's talk about Jonathan Taylor. Houston has a good rush defense. They rank 5th best in rushing yards allowed per game. They rank even better in passing yards allowed per game. They rank 3rd best in passing yards allowed per game. But let's talk about Jonathan Taylor over the 87.5 rushing yard line. Some of these guys, and Jonathan Taylor is one of those guys who I really don't care who he's going up against, what kind of defense he's going up against. He can get it done against anybody, I feel like. In fact, there was a game that he went up against a bad Miami rush defense week 1 and only had 71 rushing yards. So what does Pittsburgh rank? Let me get back to this game. What does Pittsburgh rank this season? Oh, they're the bad pass defense, right? Yeah, 32nd in passing yards allowed per game. 15th, they're okay at stopping the run. But yeah, so he got it done against Atlanta. He had a ton of rushing yards against Atlanta, who this season they're bad against defending that run. What about Tennessee? I'm just looking at his big games this season. Tennessee's bad against the run. Arizona. It's below average. Tennessee again. Denver pass defense ranks 5th best. Rush defense ranks 3rd best. And he had 165 rushing yards against Denver in week 2. So, that's just, he can get it done against anybody, right? Jonathan Taylor under 87.5 rushing yards. He's gone over that line in 6 out of 11 games this season. And if you were thinking about taking that to 80-plus rushing yards, he has still gone over that in 6 out of 11 games this season. But once we get to 70-plus, we're looking at 8 out of 11 games. 60-plus, 9 out of 11 games this season. 50-plus, 10 out of 11 games this season. And he's had 45-plus rushing yards in all 11 games this season. He has gone over the 87.5 rushing line in 6 out of 8 career games against Houston. He's had 80-plus rushing yards in 7 out of 8 career games against Houston. So good history here. And then he had 48 rushing yards in the game that he didn't have 80-plus rushing yards in his 8 career games against Houston. He's had 100-plus rushing yards in 5 out of 11 games, 5 out of 8 career games against Houston. And he's had 100-plus rushing yards in 5 out of 11 games this season. Here's a cool statistic, though. And I'm sure you probably already know, but in case you don't, Jonathan Taylor has scored at least 1 touchdown in all 8 career games against Houston. He scored exactly 2 touchdowns in 2 out of 8 career games against Houston. He has more rushing yards per carry at home than the road in every season that he's played in except one. And this is his 6th season, which is a good trend. And then he's had more rushing yards per attempt in every season except one when his team wins or ties rather than loses. So if you think the Colts are going to win today, I say that Jonathan Taylor does go over this rushing line if the Colts win today. If, typically you would, it looks good. They look good. I still do got the Colts winning this game, but I won't be shocked if Houston wins, much like a lot of other games, I do want to say Houston's won the last 4 out of 5 games against the Colts. The Colts are better against the spread this season, but even if the Colts do not win, I think there's a decent chance Jonathan Taylor goes over this line. But if you like the Colts to win, I'll let you guys make that decision. If the Colts win, I say Jonathan Taylor goes over this line, and yeah, that looks pretty solid. But I do want to talk about Jonathan Taylor's receiving prop a little bit here. Houston hasn't been great or terrible at defending receiving yards allowed to wide receivers, running backs, or receptions allowed to running backs, somewhere in the middle of the pack in regards to yards allowed this season, to that receiving yards allowed to running backs or receptions. Over under 16.5 receiving yards for Jonathan Taylor. He's gone over that in 7 out of 11 games this season. He's had 10 plus receiving yards in 10 out of 11 games this season. And but he's only gone over that receiving line in 1 out of 8 career games against Houston, which I don't like. But if you're thinking about taking Jonathan Taylor to 10 plus receiving yards, that's the way I would have to go. And he's gone, over that in 5 out of 8 career games against Houston. And then he's averaged more yards per catch on grass than turf in every season that he's played in, and this is his 6th season. So that's a bad trend considering this game is on turf. I'm going to have to lean towards Jonathan Taylor not getting 17 plus receiving yards today. And then the reception line, he has gone over that in 7 out of 11 games this season. Over 2.5 receptions. He's had 2 plus receptions in all 11 games this season. And then only half of his games against Houston, he's had 2 plus receptions. But I think with the half of the games getting the 2 plus receptions against Houston, and the fact that he has 2 plus receptions in all 11 games this season, makes me, at least feel better about taking Jonathan Taylor for 2 plus receptions more than the receiving yards. Now, if I took it to 10 plus receiving yards, maybe I do feel, I don't know. I think the 2 plus receptions is just looking better, but I don't think really either look great. You know what I mean? So yeah, I got to lean towards Jonathan Taylor going over those rushing yards today, but it's hard to ignore the fact once again that he has a touchdown in all 8 career games that he has played against Houston. I just went off Texans defense is really good. Yeah, for sure. So far, all the road teams won, says Timbo Slice. He's more comfortable with JT over 14 receiving yards. If the run game doesn't work, get JT out in open space. Yeah, and they may have to do something like that today against that good Houston defense. So, great point there, Timbo Slice. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I'll have to take that JT down to 10 plus receiving yards, 2 plus receptions. Still leaning towards them getting over the 87.5 rushing yards, though. And then Daniel Jones, last that I checked, over under 8.5 rushing yards. He's gone over that line in 5 out of 11 games this season. He's had 5 plus rushing yards in 6 out of 11 games this season. He had 24 rushing yards in his only career game against Houston He did not rush for a touchdown in that game. And Daniel Jones has had more rushing yards per attempt at home, which he's at home today. He's had more rushing yards per attempt at home than on the road in 5 out of 7 career seasons, which is a decent trend there. And then he has more rushing yards per attempt in games that his team loses rather than wins or ties in 5 out of 7 career seasons. So I do give Daniel Jones a bigger likelihood of getting 9+ rushing yards if the Colts lose based on that trend. And then I'm seeing he's had more rushing yards per attempt on grass than turf in 5 out of 7 career seasons, which is not a good trend since this game's being played on turf. And since I expect the Colts to win today, I'm going to have to lean towards Daniel Jones not going over that rushing line. Let's talk about his passing here. Houston just once again all around good defense, but they've only allowed the fourth fewest passing yards to quarterbacks this season. And when I checked at the beginning of the week, and Daniel Jones over under 226.5 passing yards, he's gone over that line in 8 out of 11 games this season. He's had 200+ passing yards in 10 out of 11 games this season. The game that he didn't, he had 181. But he did not go over that line, that 226.5 in his only career game against Houston. He had 197 passing yards. And he has more passing yards per attempt on the road than at home in 5 career seasons, which is a bad trend since he's playing at home today. But he has had more passing yards per attempt when his team wins or ties rather than loses in all 7 career seasons. So if the Colts win today, I got to lean towards Daniel Jones going over that. If they lose, I got to lean towards him going under that. I'm going to have to lean towards him going over that. And I just want to talk about Nico Collins real quick. And then maybe some anytime touchdown statistics. Nico Collins, the reason why I want to mention him, we talked about how the Colts have a bad pass defense, right? They've allowed the 9th most receiving yards to wide receivers this season. They've allowed the 3rd most receptions. Nico Collins, over under 65.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that in half of his games this season, 5 out of 10. And then he's had 60+ receiving yards. So if we took that down from 65.5 to 60+, he has still gone over that the same amount of times. That was actually pretty cool what that did to my hand there. He's had 60+ receiving yards in 5 out of 10 games this season as well. But once we get to 50+ receiving yards for Nico Collins, we're looking at 8 out of 10 games this season. He's gone, had 50+ receiving yards, which is pretty decent, against a bad pass defense, in a game where I'm suspecting, Houston to pass the ball. 50+ looks pretty solid there, I think. And then he's gone over the 65.5 receiving line in 3 out of 6 career games against the Colts. Nico Collins has had at least 117 receiving yards in 3 career games against the Colts. He's played the Colts 3 times and has had at least 117 receiving yards in each one of those games. Or excuse me, let me rephrase that, because I said, and sometimes I got to check myself here, because I said he's gone over this line in 3 out of 6 career games against Indianapolis. He's had at least 117 receiving yards in 3 career games that he's gone over the 65.5 receiving line against the Colts. Okay, so in his last 3 games against the Colts, Nico Collins has had 117+ receiving yards. He's had a touchdown in 2 out of 6 career games against the Colts. He's had more receiving yards per reception at home than on the road in every season that he's played in. And this is his 5th season in the NFL, and that's a bad trend. But here's a good trend. He has more yards per reception on turf than grass in every season that he's played in. So a bad trend and a good trend just kind of wipe each other out there. But he does rank first on Houston in red zone targets with 12. And his next closest teammate is Schultz with 7. So I want to just go look real quick to see, where Indianapolis is allowing a bulk of their touchdowns. They've allowed 10 wide receiver touchdowns, which isn't terrible. And then tight end touchdowns, 5. I just need to look real quick. And if I look this up earlier, Schultz has scored so Schultz has never scored a touchdown against the Colts. 0 for 6. So just based on that alone, I think I have to go Nico Collins anytime touchdown for my favorite anytime touchdown scorer today. I like him going over those receiving yards too. But I want to see if the Colts have been vulnerable to anything else in regards to touchdowns allowed this season. They haven't allowed a rushing touchdown to a quarterback. What about to running backs? They're somewhat vulnerable to that running back touchdown. Not terrible though. So if you like a running back for Houston to punch it in today, I could see it, but I'm not going to look into it too hard. So yeah, I'm going to have to go with Nico Collins anytime touchdown and getting 66 plus receiving yards in this one. And then his reception line, he's gone over the 5.5 receptions in 4 out of 10 games this season. He's had, if you're thinking about taking that hook off and looking at 5 plus receptions, he still has gone over that in 4 out of 10 games this season. But once we drop Nico Collins down to 4 plus receptions, we're looking at 7 out of 10 games this season, 3 plus receptions in all 10 games this season. And he's gone over the 5.5 reception line in 3 out of 6 career games against the Colts. In his last 3 games, though, he's had 6 plus receptions against Indianapolis. Still, I'm leaning more towards the receiving yards over than instead of the receptions. I could see both hitting, but and then that anytime touchdown. It's got to be my favorite. Okay, yeah, Timbo. Let me answer your question here. Just a second. Let's see. Daniel Jones playing with a slight injury. Let's go take a look here. Fibula. He doesn't carry an injury designation for the contest, is what I'm seeing here. Yeah, I'm reading this here, and it makes sense. I don't think the Colts are going to put Daniel Jones in a unfavorable situation if he truly was injured. He means so much to the Colts' success, and this is not a must-win game for the Colts. So, if they had to sit him out, man, I think they would. So I think that injury designation there is just there so people don't take Daniel Jones props today. It's looking like another multi-touchdown night for Henderson. Your thoughts? Yeah, Travion Henderson. Now he plays tomorrow night, right? But yeah, I mean the Giants ranked 32nd in rushing yards allowed per game. I'm doing a specific show on that game tomorrow, a different episode. But I haven't done any research for that game. Well, I have, but not a ton with the player props. But yeah, Henderson. Well, I mean, how many rushing touchdowns have the Giants allowed to running backs this season? They've allowed the 3rd most. They've allowed the 2nd most receiving. I'm not sure if Travion Henderson has any receiving touchdowns this season, but if he does, that's an added benefit for him scoring a touchdown tomorrow. I mean, the Giants are bad against the rush. So, I'll have to look into that a little bit more, but yeah, I could see him. I could see him having some a multi-touchdown game. Call me crazy, says Blessed Up P, but I got a feeling Raiders cover versus Chargers. So this season, I feel every time Raiders line is 9.5, they've covered it. I think I remember the same line versus Broncos or Pats or the Bears. Let me go see if I have it in my notes here. Ivan, just give me 1 second. What games did you say? Broncos, Pats, or Bears? Let's go take a look. Broncos, Pats, Bears. I know it tells me the line somewhere on what it was. I don't want to have to look into my Word notes to find it. Usually when I just go to ESPN.com, it tells me. Oh, well, I mean, if I have to. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Ivan. They were the Broncos were. They opened at 10.5. Looks like closed at 9.5 against the Raiders in Week 10, and the Broncos only won by, the Broncos only won by 3. And then against the New England Patriots. Oh, come on. Where did I find that one? Right on the front cover here. It's not showing me on that one. Bears were the Raiders were actually favored against the Bears. But when did they play New England here? Week 1. Let's see if I can find my Week 1 notes just real quick. But yeah, man, that's not going to be them. I don't want to look too much into it, but you're right at least about the Broncos game. And go look at that game a little bit here. Week 13. I mean, the Raiders lead the all-time series, right? The Raiders lead the all-time series 69, 61, and 2 against the Chargers. The Chargers have won the last 4 out of 5 games against the Raiders. The Los Angeles Chargers are 7-4 against the Las Vegas Raiders. Keenan Allen needs 2 receptions to move into 13th place on the all-time receptions leaders list. He would pass Steve Smith Sr. The Raiders actually, Ivan, have a better record against the spread. Oh, no, the Chargers do. Right, I mean, they're close, though. The Chargers, Raiders are 4-7 against the spread. Chargers are 4-6-1. Raiders 2-3 against the spread as a road dog. Chargers 2-2-1 against the spread as a home favorite. Vegas has lost their last 5 games in a row. Chargers have lost 1 in a row. I give the Chargers a big passing advantage. Good sized rushing advantage. Advantages everywhere, really, that I see for the Chargers. But we're not necessarily talking about winning and losing, right? We're talking about covering the 9.5. I mean, that's usually when the best plays are made, right? I feel like whenever I'm naturally feeling something is going to happen, and then the statistics back it up. I don't think everything is just statistics, right? I don't think everything is just purely based on feel. Now, sometimes you can win just based off statistics alone. Sometimes you win just based off of feel alone. But I think I make my best plays whenever I'm feeling it and it statistically aligns. Um, and maybe you have your reasons, why it statistically aligns. Maybe since they are 9.5 point favorites, not only are you feeling a type of way, but the statistics back it up too. At least against that game against Denver, it's a divisional game too. I don't think you're crazy for that. I mean, I got to go with the Chargers here, even to cover. But yeah, man, I've seen crazier things happen. The Raiders, they rank 18th in passing yards allowed per game, 13th in rushing yards allowed per game. So the Raiders, relative to other teams in the league, are more vulnerable against the pass. The Chargers like to call a high percentage of passing plays. They rank 6th in passing play percentage. So also the Raiders allow the 6th most 40-plus yard receptions this season. So I think the Chargers should have no problem passing the ball against the Raiders. The Raiders have allowed the 10th most receiving yards to wide receivers and the 6th most receptions to wide receivers before the week started. I see that McConkey has gone over his 52.5 receiving line in 6 out of 11 games this season. 40-plus receiving yards in 8 out of 11, 30-plus in 9 out of 11. Keenan Allen, he's gone over his 37.5 receiving yard line in 8 out of 11 games this season, 30-plus in 9 out of 11, 20-plus in 10 out of 11 games this season. I didn't have time to look up the history that these guys have had against the Raiders. But what I do know is that McConkey, I can real quick. I can, because I know that these guys haven't played each other in the playoffs. I looked to see how many times they've had a touchdown against the Raiders, McConkey and Keenan Allen. But, I can just look up McConkey versus Raiders statistics. Usually when I type that in my search engine, it takes me to statmuse.com, but StatMuse doesn't include playoffs a lot of the time. So I have to look for those playoff games that they've played against teams in a different way. But, McConkey, he's only gone over the 52.5 receiving line in 1 out of 3 career games against the Raiders. He's also scored a touchdown in 1 out of 3 career games against the Raiders. And then, the reception line is somewhat interesting here for McConkey. He's had exactly his over-under on receptions is 4.5. He's had 5-plus receptions in 6 out of 11 games this season, which is more than half. And he's had exactly 5 receptions in all 3 career games against Vegas. So it does sound like it would be a little sweaty there, but that looks pretty good. So if you're thinking about McConkey, 5-plus receptions today, you got that working with you. But let's go look at Keenan Allen real quick. I think I wrote on my notes that he has a touchdown in 8 out of 19 games against the Raiders throughout his history. Let me double check that. Yeah, 8 out of 19 games all time. He's gone over that line. But I want to see how many times he's, had 38 plus receiving yards, or really how many times he didn't. He didn't in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 8 or 19 minus 5 is what? 14. So 14 out of 19 career games, Keenan Allen has gone over that receiving line. We talked about how he needed a couple of receptions to move into 13th place on the all-time receptions leaders list. Also, just keep in mind if you're interested in this game that the Raiders allow the sixth most 40-plus yard receptions this season. I don't know who leads the Chargers in 40-plus yard receptions this season, but what I do like to do when I have the time to look that information up is go to rotowire.com, ROTO wire.com, and click on which game are we looking for? Vegas and Chargers. I'm clicking on each pass catcher here for the Chargers. So McConkey has 2 40-plus yard receptions this season. Quentin Johnston has 1 40-plus yard reception. And then Keenan Allen has 0. So just based on that alone, I got to give the nod to McConkey to be the player that possibly has a bigger receiving gain. I think he has the biggest likelihood of getting that 40-plus yard reception today. But let's not sleep on this Gadsden tight end, man, because I think I've seen him have some big gains this season. He's had 2 40-plus yard receiving gains this season as well. The Raiders just defend against that tight end position much better. They rank 5th best, the Raiders do, in receiving yards allowed to tight ends. So, I think McConkey here with the yards. I like Keenan Allen with the yards, 37.5. But yeah, McConkey, I think, has the biggest chance to get a 40-plus yard reception. Allen and Ladd McConkey will have a good game today. Allen definitely gets that record. Yeah, the two receptions. Keenan Allen has had 2+ receptions in 11 out of 11 games this season. Once again, the Raiders have allowed the 6th most receptions to wide receivers before the week started. So yeah, man, I think there's a real good chance Keenan Allen moves up into 13th place on that all-time receptions leaders list. I thought Keenan Allen was number 13. Yeah, I was just looking at his jersey number, and he's number 13, all right? So he'll move into 13th place on that all-time receptions leaders list with 2 receptions, number 13. All right. Anything else that I really wanted to cover in this one? Not a whole lot. I mean, I'm kind of feeling just like bouncing in between games and stuff right now. Let me tell you guys, let's talk about who has good history, in Chargers beat Raiders 20-9 already this season, says Ivan. Yeah, I gotta lean towards Chargers still, man. I can't with the Raiders, man. But I just want to go over some interesting, career histories for you guys in case you were thinking about, those anytime touchdown scores. Let's look at who's got the best history out of the guys that I have wrote down, and see if that makes any sense today. Christian McCaffrey has had a touchdown in all 3 career games that he's played the Cleveland Browns. He has exactly 2 touchdowns in 1 out of 3 career games against Cleveland. Cleveland has a really good defense. It would be a concern that I have here. They've allowed the second fewest rushing touchdowns to running backs this season. They've allowed 2 receiving touchdowns to running backs, so they're not allowing a ton of touchdowns to running backs. But Christian McCaffrey does rank first on the San Francisco 49ers in target share, red zone target share. I mean, he's basically their red zone wide receiver there in San Francisco. Next man up would be Jawan Jennings, who I thought I maybe had some statistics for him, but no. Okay. Maybe I saw that Cleveland was kind of vulnerable to allowing touchdowns to wide receivers. I mean, yeah, they've allowed 10. So those would be probably my first two looks. But do I think McCaffrey scores today? Yeah. Yeah, 3 out of 3 career games against Cleveland. What else here? Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver for Jacksonville, has scored a touchdown in 1 out of 2 career games against Tennessee. Travis Etienne has never scored a touchdown against Tennessee in 6 career games. Brenton Strange, tight end for Jacksonville, has not scored a touchdown in 4 career games against Tennessee. When I'm picking anytime touchdowns, I mean, I do think that the current data means more than the historical data. But I mean, I got to have at least a touchdown in 6 games, Etienne. I mean, can he get one today? Absolutely, Travis Etienne. But just not something that I can. Tennessee's allowed the second most rushing touchdowns to running backs this season. One would automatically think, let me get on Travis Etienne here. Jacksonville has a big red zone attempts per game advantage and a big red zone, a decent sized red zone conversion rate advantage. Who do they have as their backup running backs? I just don't like, once again, the fact that he doesn't have a touchdown in 6 career games against Tennessee. Tootin? Maybe Tootin would be the way I would go there. Once again, though, Brian Thomas Jr. has had a touchdown in 1 out of 2 career games against Tennessee. I don't know Tootin's history or if he even has any, right? But I just can't go with ETN today based on that 0 for 6. Any given Sunday, though, right? We already mentioned Jonathan Taylor has a touchdown in 8 out of 8 career games against Houston. That's a tough trend to go up against. I don't care how good Houston's rush defense is, man. And Houston really hasn't been terrific at limiting running back rushing touchdowns this season. They're middle of the pack. So I gotta lean towards JT today. It's funny. I was watching this clip this guy was making the other day, and he was like, he's like, I used to be one of those science guys. He's like, I used to, look at, he was talking about NBA. I was looking at Josh Hart, for over 8.5 rebounds, and he's the smallest guy out there and stuff. And he's like, from here on out, I am putting nothing but ball hogs on my slips. I'm putting nothing, and at least I can go to sleep at night saying, you know what, I put myself in the best position possible. This guy, shows up. He's a big time player, and I don't care what defense he's going up against. That's kind of how I feel about Jonathan Taylor here today. I don't have that necessarily same philosophy, for every game and every player, but I think some of it was sarcasm. It was a funny clip, but I think there was some truth to it too. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going against Jonathan Taylor today. Nico Collins already mentioned, 2 out of 6 career games against the Colts. The Colts have allowed, I've already covered that, so I'm not going to talk about it again here. What about for this game? Jalen Waddle has scored a touchdown in his only career game against the Saints. So if you like Waddle today, getting a touchdown, you got that working for you. The Saints, looks like they have been somewhat vulnerable. They've allowed they're near the bottom of the league in allowing wide receiver touchdowns. Miami, they call a high percentage of passing plays. They rank 10th in passing play percentage. I know earlier this year, Miami was real good at converting touchdowns in the red zone. I think it was. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I do give them, a red zone conversion advantage today, red zone attempts per game advantage, and we look at, the red zone targets for Miami. Waddle ranks first with 10, and then it's Achane with 8. But if we look at the Saints receiving touchdowns allowed to running backs this season, they've only allowed 2. So, I got to lean more towards Waddle. I love Waddle's touchdown celebration. You know what I mean? You guys know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you got to see it, because his name's Waddle, so he'll start waddling around when he scores a touchdown. I think that's one of the coolest touchdown celebrations in the NFL. Allen and Ladd McConkey will have a good. Oh, we've already talked about that. Can we talk about that game of the week? Falcons and Jets. Yeah, let's do it, man. Let me just go through real quick. Speaking of, here we are. Falcons and Jets is the game that I scroll to. Something that I want to mention first and foremost is that the Jets, before the week started, had the best kickoff returner in regards to average kickoff return yardage. He also scored a kickoff return touchdown. So if you're into those special team statistics, if you're thinking about maybe taking the Jets today or at least to cover or something like that, I would maybe look to see if Atlanta is vulnerable to kickoff return yards, if they've allowed a lot, if they've even allowed a lot of punt return yardage or a punt return touchdown, because the Jets do have a punt return touchdown this season and a kickoff return touchdown this season. Blessed Up P says Alligator will get a touchdown. Tyler Algier. Now, he did not get a touchdown in his only career game against the Jets. But the Jets have allowed 10 rushing touchdowns to running backs this season. So they've allowed the, 5th most. And I want to go see if I have any split information on Algier. Maybe from last week. Okay, so I didn't have anything with his splits here, at least last week. So I don't know if he has any favorable splits or not. Usually with those backup running backs, what seems to me like what usually happens is if a team is up by 15 plus points or so, they start using that second string, third string a little bit more. So I would naturally think that he has a better chance of getting a touchdown if the Falcons, run away with this game. But I can't tell you how many times this season I've seen Algier score the first touchdown of the game. I feel like he's done it at least twice in primetime games too. I like Algier, for some reason. Now I'm just kind of looking at the times he's scored a touchdown in games of 15 plus points of margin of victory. There doesn't seem to be like a huge lopside of touchdowns scored regardless of the margin of victory with Algier. And that makes sense, now that I'm really thinking about it, because once again, I can't tell you how many times he's had the first touchdown this season. Does anybody know? I would like to know, but I'm not going to take your guys' time up to do that. But yeah, game of the week. I don't know who to give the passing advantage to in this game. Both teams are pretty close. in regards to passing yards per game, passing yards allowed per game. I do give Atlanta a good-sized rushing advantage, especially with Kamara being out. Somebody who I'm looking forward to in this game is going to be isn't it hold up. Oh, that's in a different game. Let's see here. Let's talk about some Robinson props, okay? Bijan Robinson. The Saints, excuse me, the Saints, they've allowed a lot more rushing yards per game than passing yards per game. Also, Atlanta calls a higher percentage of rushing plays relative to other teams in the league. Just barely. They rank 18th in that passing play percentage. And that was week 12. No, I was confused there for a second. Sorry, guys. I got two different sets of notes up. I was looking for splits here. Sorry. The Jets. The Jets ranked 23rd in rushing yards allowed per game this season. And if I start misspeaking, usually I catch it. They rank the Jets ranked 10th in passing yards allowed per game this season. So the Jets are more vulnerable relative to other teams in the league in regards to rushing yards allowed per game. That's where they're weaker relative to other teams in the league. Atlanta ranks 20th now in passing play percentage. So they do call a higher percentage of rushing plays relative to league average. I do want to mention that the Jets have allowed the 9th most 20-plus yard rushing plays this season, and Bijan Robinson has 4 20-plus yard rushing gains this season. Algier has 1. So I think that is an added benefit if you want to take a Robinson or Algier rushing prop today. Robinson, the Jets have allowed the 12th most rushing yards to running backs this season. Bijan Robinson over under 79.5 rushing yards. He's only gone over that line in 4 out of 11 games this season. If we take it down to 70-plus rushing yards for Robinson, we're looking at 7 out of 11 games this season. 60-plus, same thing. 7 out of 11 games this season. Even 50-plus, 7 out of 11. 40-plus rushing yards, 9 out of 11. He's had 100-plus rushing yards in 3 out of 11 games this season. His only career game against the Jets, he had only 58 rushing yards, which is under that 79.5 total. And he did not score a touchdown in that game. And Robinson does have more yards per attempt in rushing yards per attempt in games that his team wins or ties rather than loses in every season that he's played in. And this is his 3rd season. He's had more yards per carry on grass than turf in 2 out of 3 seasons that he's played in. Not a big sample size. Really, I shouldn't have even wrote that down on my notes here. But it's a bad trend, but it's a small sample size, right? I'm concerned about him going over the true line. I do like the fact that, the Jets have allowed the 9th most 20-plus yard rushing plays this season, and he has 4. But I don't like the fact that he's only gone over that line in 4 out of 11 games. And I don't like how I'm probably taking him for 70-plus or nothing. And I don't think I can even take him for 70-plus, considering he only had 58 rushing yards in his only career game against the Jets. And I think taking it down to 40-plus rushing yards is you're not going to get a good payoff on that. So just not a player I'm really looking forward to today in the running game. But Algier, man, let's see. He's gone over his 30.5 rushing line in 5 out of 11 games this season. 20-plus in 6 out of 11 games this season. 10-plus rushing yards in 8 out of 11 games this season. And I just want to see if he's ever played against the Jets. Alligator. Maybe we have some better history here. 26 rushing yards in his only career game against the Jets. So, 20-plus rushing yards for Alligator is the way I would be leaning towards. And then that would be my favorite rushing prop. And I'd have to lean towards I gotta lean towards Alligator over his rushing yards instead of Bijan Robinson. Just at the normal lines. Alligator did not score a touchdown in his only career game against the Jets. I think I already mentioned that. But, hey, man, I think Kirk Cousins is somebody that we got to look at. And I'll get to your comments there, Ivan. I think Kirk Cousins is somebody that I got to look at against the Jets. Now, he's had a long history. He's had a long career, so I'm just going to type it in the search engine here. Hopefully he's never played the Jets in a playoff game. Kirk Cousins versus Jets stats. I really want his rushing statistics. Didn't I say Cousins could hit a milestone today, or was that last week? Kirk Cousins needs 2 passing touchdowns to move into 16th place on the all-time passing touchdowns leaders list. He would pass Warren Moon. He's had exactly two touchdowns in 1 out of 3 career games against the Jets if he didn't play them in a playoff game. So I think that's cutting it close. But if you like Cousins, to get that today, you got that going for you. But I want Kirk Cousins rushing stats. But I can go look because I know what years he's played. 2022, he played against the Jets, and I just want to see how many times he's had the 1 rushing yard against the Jets. He had 9 in his most recent game against the Jets, if it wasn't a playoff game. Which the Jets never make the playoffs. No, I'm kidding, kind of. What year did he play? 2018. When I was he had -1 rushing yard in that game, and then 2015. He had 1 yard rushing. So Kirk Cousins has had at least 1 yard rushing in 2 out of 3 career games against the Jets. That's my favorite rushing prop today for Atlanta. But let's talk about. Let's see what Ivan's saying here. Alligator will get a touchdown. I'm gonna ladder up Mason Taylor on receiving yards possibly to get yards. Truly, I think he can get 70 to 100. I think he's probably got a better chance of doing that with Tyrod Taylor and Taylor is that projected starting quarterback today. Let's go take a look real quick. Tyrod Taylor in his last few games. Let's go take a look at these box scores, Ivan. I mean, Atlanta has allowed the 4th fewest receiving yards to tight ends and the 2nd fewest receptions. But, what was it? You called Bryce Young going over his passing yards against Atlanta the other week, and Atlanta had allowed the fewest passing yards to opposing teams. And he doesn't really accumulate a lot of passing yards, but he went for 448, I think it was. So I don't know what's up with you in this Atlanta defense, but it seems like, you're not afraid of it. And Mason Taylor to Taylor connection. Mason Taylor led the second leader in targets in that game against Carolina. It looks like Tyrod Taylor came in and filled in for What about at the start? Mason Taylor had 5 total targets behind Mitchell and Mechie in the game against Baltimore, which was hold on, let me close some of these tabs. I still got Nick Chubb stats up. Okay. And we were looking at Tyrod Taylor game log. I just want to see, how much he targets Mason Taylor. I don't know about that one, man. Mason Taylor, he's gone over his 28.5 receiving line in 5 out of 11 games this season. He's had 20-plus receiving yards in 7 out of 11 games this season. If I had to take Mason Taylor for anything, it'd be 3 receptions and 20 yards receiving. Man, it seems like he really likes to target wide receivers or wide receivers more than his tight ends. And I think in this game that makes more sense too. Because, Atlanta is more vulnerable to receiving yards allowed to wide receivers and receptions than they are to the tight end position. So, I got to lean more towards I kind of like this Mechie guy. I mean, he doesn't pop off the charts here, right? He's had Mechie over under 35.5 receiving yards. I mean, that's just instinctively what I'm feeling here. He's gone over that line in only 2 out of 7 games this season, but really 2 out of 6 since he wasn't targeted in one of those games. But he's gone over that line in 2 games in a row. The 2 times that Mechie's gone over that line, it's been his last 2 games. I think maybe with a new quarterback in now with Tyrod Taylor. And let's go look at that game against Baltimore. How many times was Mechie targeted? 7, right there with Mitchell. 7. But Mechie had 6 receptions compared to Mitchell's 2. So that catch rate I like too with Mechie. Give me not a play that I love, right? But that's just which way I'm leaning towards is Mechie over 35.5 receiving yards. Breece Hall receiving yards might be a good way to go. Receptions is a must. Yeah. Yep, Atlanta. I think that is the way to go, Ivan. We talked about well, I don't know if we talked about it, but I'm looking at it. And, Atlanta is vulnerable to that rush. They rank 26th in rushing yards allowed per game. Passing yards allowed per game, they rank 8th. So they're much better against the pass than they are the rush as a team, as a whole. But Breece Hall has only had 16 rushing yards in his only career game against Atlanta. And when we're looking, the Jets do like to run the ball too. The Jets do like to run the ball. So if he does have a good game today, I won't be surprised on the ground, Breece Hall. But when we're looking at Breece Hall receiving props here, okay? Atlanta, let's look at Atlanta's defense first. Atlanta's good. They're best at defending against that tight end position, receptions and receiving yards. And then to the receiving yards and receptions allowed to wide receivers, that's where they are better at next. And then their biggest vulnerability is the receiving yards to running backs and receptions allowed to running backs. And last week against Baltimore, Breece Hall had 75 receiving yards. Now, he was only targeted 4 times. Mason Taylor had an extra target instead of Breece Hall. But, Breece Hall over under 22.5 receiving yards. In case I didn't mention it, Atlanta has allowed the 12th most receiving yards to running backs and the 8th most receptions to running backs. Brees Hall's gone over the 22.5 receiving line in 6 out of 11 games this season. He's had 10-plus receiving yards in 8 out of 11 games this season. Excuse me. Brees Hall has gone over the 22.5 receiving yard total 6 out of 11 times this season, as I mentioned just a second ago. But he's also had 30-plus receiving yards in the same amount of games this season. And then he had 29 receiving yards in his only career game against Atlanta. So I like the receiving yards for Brees Hall today over that 22.5. I like the history. Only one game against Atlanta, right? But it's something. It's better than not going over that in his only career game against Atlanta. And the fact that he's gone over this line in more than half of his games this season looks solid. I mean, he's had 30-plus receiving yards in 6 out of 11 games this season as well. So it gives us a little bit of wiggle room there, I feel like. And he led the team. He led the Jets in receiving yards last week. Can he replicate that is the big question. I'd have to lean towards him doing so. Receptions, Ivan, you were talking about that, over under 2.5. Now, he's only gone over the reception line in 4 out of 11 games this season. So he has a higher success rate with his receiving yard line. But if we take Brees Hall to 2+ receptions, we're looking at 9 out of 11 games this season. And in his only career game against Atlanta, Brees Hall had 6. Once again, he didn't have a touchdown in his only career game against Atlanta. But, 2+ receptions for 23+ yards, even 30+ yards for Brees Hall, I think looks like the best statistically, looks like the best receiving prop for the Jets today. I can see it happening too. I mentioned Mechie, how I kind of like Mechie, Big Mech. But, yeah, I think, statistically that Brees Hall stuff looks the best in the receiving game. Kyle Pitts, the Jets are good at defending against the tight end position. Kyle Pitts, he's only gone over his line, 45.5 receiving yards in 4 out of 11 games this season. And he's gone under that 45.5 receiving line in 4 straight games. Even if you take Kyle Pitts to 40+ receiving yards, you're still looking at 4 out of 11 times that he's gone over this season. And he's scored a touchdown in 1 out of 2 career games against the Jets I have. And he's gone over, but he has gone over the 45.5 receiving line in both career games against the Jets. So I'm a little torn about Kyle Pitts today. I'll probably have to lean towards him not getting there. You might be right, Bettors. I didn't look at Mechie. I love it because Taylor's been in them 2 games. Mechie went over. Yeah. Mason or Mechie. Tyrod Taylor seems like he's been favoring a wide receiver in the games that he's played. Now, some of these games Justin Fields played, right? Let's see. Against Tampa Bay, he targeted Garrett Wilson 13 times, okay? So Garrett Wilson's out, obviously, right? But then Brees Hall and Mason Taylor were targeted the same. So I feel like, not just because of that one game, but because of that game against Baltimore. I think every other game that Tyrod Taylor's played this season, Justin Fields has played, except these 2. So I think we only have 2 games to look at here for Tyrod Taylor. And he targeted a wide receiver the most in both of those games. Garrett Wilson, once again, 13 total targets. And then it was Breece Hall and Mason Taylor with 6 in that game against Tampa Bay. And then just last week against Baltimore, he goes right back to the wide receivers. Mechie caught six catches on 7 targets. Mason Taylor, 3 receptions, 5 targets. Also, Baltimore has allowed more receiving yards to wide receivers than the tight end position relative to other teams in the league. Same case today with Atlanta. Atlanta allows more receiving yards to wide receivers than tight ends relative to other teams in the league. So, I mean, I gotta lean towards Mechie in this one, man. Fields don't throw the ball, dude. Would have 50 total yards. Yeah, man. Anything else here for this game? I mean, what an ugly game, dude. But give me, believe it or not, the Jets are actually better against the spread this season than the Falcons. And the Falcons are actually 0-2 against the spread this season as a road favorite. Atlanta, slight passing advantage. New York Jets, slight rushing advantage I have here on my notes. So Jets, slight third down conversion advantage. And the advantages that Atlanta has, in the red zone are slight. And I feel like some of these numbers are skewed, meaning that they're just inaccurate, a little inaccurate, because Tyrod Taylor is in this game, and Justin Fields is responsible for a lot of these offensive numbers, I feel like. I'm not saying that Tyrod Taylor is not, but I just feel like maybe it's more so Justin Fields. And I don't think Atlanta's advantages are too significant unless we're talking about sacks on the quarterback advantage. Hopefully Tyrod Taylor's not getting sacked a whole lot. 3 sacks against Baltimore. He's got sacked 3 times against Baltimore, 3 times against Carolina. The reason why I say so is because Atlanta's been getting after opposing quarterbacks really well, and the Jets just haven't been protecting their quarterback at all. So hopefully, Tyrod Taylor can bring in some of that veteran savvy and not get the ball out quick if he needs to, which makes me kind of probably like that Breece Hall prop a little bit more. But if he has some time, give me a big match. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think the Jets are – but I mean, can I go with the Jets to cover? Look, if you like the Jets to cover, I'm with you. I'm with you and I'm rooting for you, all right? But, I mean, I just couldn't do that. Jets are just one of those teams where I can't touch them. Forecast at 1 p.m. in New York City is rain. Now I'm overthinking. Winds at 13 miles per hour. Yeah, let's do a little weather update and maybe a player injury update here. See if we got anything. Excuse me. Yeah, Ivan. What I'm seeing here on rotogrinders.com/weather/NFL is that there's a steady light rain early in this Jets game and likely into kickoff. That rain should clear for a bit, and then another round is likely later in that game. It says that it's wet at the game, but not a true downpour, and it's likely not an all-game thing. Winds stay fairly light, 10 miles per hour max. They're not thinking that it's a huge issue in this one. But man, I think obviously Michael Penix Jr. has better potential than Kirk Cousins, but I almost feel like Atlanta could be a better team with Kirk Cousins, just because of that veteran leadership for the time being. And I can't go with the Jets. But once again, man, if you're going for the Jets today, I mean, I'm rooting for you. I kind of like the Jets, Tyrod Taylor, Breece Hall, Metch. I just can't today. But once again, guys, I think that the special teams could be huge in this one, considering the Jets have the best kickoff returner in regards to average kickoff return yards this season. He also has a kickoff return for a touchdown. And, they also have the 9th ranked punt return yarder average guy, Isaiah Williams, this season. And he has also scored a punt return for a touchdown. So, if you really do like the Jets to cover today, I would look to see if Atlanta is vulnerable to allowing, kickoff yards or punt return yards. Sometimes I have difficulties finding that information. Let me see if I just have it just readily available real quick. Special teams, punt returns. I'm at NFL.com. They don't make this, I appreciate what you guys are trying to do here, NFL.com. And I use NFL.com for a lot of statistics, but it's just not easily readable. I cannot interpret this very well. Shoot. Thought I just closed the whole entire live. Punt return yards allowed. It'll probably take me to Stat News or something. Team kickoff return yards allowed this season. Who am I looking for? Atlanta. Doesn't look like Atlanta's been terrible at allowing kickoff return yards. About kickoff return yard average. This is, I don't know. It's tough for me to find that information. If you can find it, I think it's valuable information. All right. But right now, yeah, give me Atlanta. Can't go with the Jets. But, without Justin Fields, I think the Jets do have a better chance with Tyrod Taylor. We got to talk about 49ers and Browns. People all over the Browns to cover because of the bad weather, says Blessed Up P. Plus, Browns are better at home. I got that feeling, man. What do you think about it, Blessed Up P? What do you guys think about it in chat? I got this weird feeling Browns give the Niners a small run for their money today. There's a couple reasons why I say that. One is because Cleveland leads the all-time series 13-8 against San Francisco. The home team, which is Cleveland, like you were talking about, the home team has won the past 5 meetings between these two teams. Cleveland has beaten San Francisco 4 times in a row when Cleveland was the home team. Cleveland is 8-2 on the money line against San Francisco all time when Cleveland is the home team. Cleveland's also 3-0 against the spread as a home underdog this season, but San Francisco is 4-0 as the road favorite. Overall, I give San Francisco a big passing advantage. Although, maybe Shedeur Sanders is a little bit more comfortable now. But yeah, still, overall, San Francisco, big passing advantage, slight rushing advantage, big third down conversion advantage. They got the red zone conversion advantages. There's two advantages I see here for Cleveland, though. A big sacks on the quarterback advantage and a big turnover differential advantage. I want to look at something. I'm going to look to see last week. I know this could be a little bit boring for some here, but I'm going to look at it anyways. I just want to look to see if there's any correlation with the winners from last week. If they had a big sacks advantage and a big, or let's just say a sacks advantage and a turnover differential advantage in my notes here. I just wanted to see what happened last week. I had in my notes New England had a big advantages in both of those categories, and New England won by 6 points. Shouldn't take me too long to figure this out. Detroit had an advantage there. They won by 7 against the Giants in overtime. So I'm looking for both of those statistics. Cleveland, big sacks advantage and big turnover differential advantage last week against the Raiders. Cleveland won 24-10. Makes me wonder, though, is Cleveland always looking like this? They rank second. No, they don't. Although they're good at getting sacks, they rank second in team sacks per game. Their turnover differential is +2. So I'm just seeing if there's any correlation here with the winners and losers based on this. Atlanta last week, I had in my notes, they had a big sacks and a big turnover differential advantage. They won 24-10. I'd say the Rams technically had it last week. They won 34-7 against Tampa. So every time last week that I had in my notes, which was about 4 games, that a team had the sacks advantage and turnover differential advantage, that team won every time. And that's what we see today here with Cleveland. Big sacks advantage, big turnover differential advantage. And we're about to see, with this game, how meaningful it really is, because Cleveland has no other advantage in the other categories that I look at. Where do I feel like Cleveland's got a you talked about weather, Ivan. Seeing, some heavy sustained winds, 25 miles per hour, gusts around 35 miles per hour. So I think, obviously for the deeper throws and kicks, that could be harmful. Who does that hurt more? Probably San Francisco, you would think. So maybe they look for McCaffrey a little bit more today. And just dump it off to McCaffrey. Keep it out of the air, San Francisco. McCaffrey, over under 39.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that line in 12 out of 12 games this season. Is it really 39.5? I mean, it's rare that I see something like this, where they have the line set at something a player has gone over in every game this season. 39.5 is what I'm seeing here on DK. And I'm pretty sure McCaffrey has gone over that. I think I remember last week I said 40 plus. He's gone over in every game this year. Yeah, he's gone over that. He's had 40 plus receiving yards in every game this year. Statistically, I don't see anything better today than this. In regards to that success rate, Cleveland ranks 12th before the week started, 12th best in receiving yards allowed to running backs. But I'm sure McCaffrey has played up against some tough, receiving yards allowed to running backs defenses this year. I mean, let's see, Minnesota, Tennessee, Buffalo. Minnesota, Tennessee, Buffalo. Minnesota, Tennessee, or Buffalo. I don't think he's played against any of those. What about Jets, Saints, Lions? Just Saints. He had 52 receiving yards. So Pitt, Denver, Chargers. Anyways. Yeah, so that looks good. He's actually had 50-plus receiving yards in 10 out of 12 games this season, 60-plus receiving yards in 8 out of 12 games this season. 70-plus is where we start getting into more times than not. He's had 70-plus receiving yards in 5 out of 12 games this season. He's had more yards per catch at home than on the road in 7 out of 9 career seasons, which is not a good trend since he's on the road today. But he scored a touchdown in 3 out of 3 career games against Cleveland. I've already mentioned that. Leads this team in red zone targets and 4th in the NFL in red zone targets. Receptions for McCaffrey. He's gone over the 4.5 reception line in 11 out of 12 games this season. He's had 3-plus receptions in all 12 games, 6-plus receptions in 9 out of 12 games this season, 7-plus receptions in 7 out of 12 games this season. I didn't mention how many times McCaffrey has gone over these lines against the Browns in his 3-game history. He had 38, 24, and 9 receiving yards. So he's never gone over that against Cleveland, the receiving yard line. Receptions, he did once. He had 6 one time. So I think this is a great, I want to put this on my notes here. Let's watch out for this game. I think this is all of a sudden turned into the most interesting game of the day for me, Ivan. There's a couple of things that I want to see. How meaningful is this correlation between teams winning and having a big sacks on the quarterback advantage and a big turnover differential advantage? Also, with McCaffrey, what means more? The current 12 out of 12 games this season going over these receiving yards and the receptions, 4.5, 11 out of 12 games this season, or the fact that he's never gone over those receiving yards in any career game against Cleveland. It's going to be fun to watch and see what happens. Maybe we should do that more. Maybe I think that's something that I could do more of, right? Is go recap, see what went right and went wrong, and do recap shows. It just takes me so much time to prepare for these shows. I just don't know. I mean, maybe down the road is something, something that I can fit in here. Just want to take the time real quick to say thank you to our sponsors, BetUS, MyBookie.ag, Walmart.com, Open Goal, MLB and NFL Pro Shops, and Dubby Energy Drinks. But, I think there was a game on Thanksgiving, right, where there was something that really stuck out to me. I can't remember exactly what. I think it was receiving yards, tight ends, right? It was Gasecki, and I just want to see what happens. I think both of these guys went under, and then we'll get on. We'll get on to the other games and stuff. But I think it's just as important to see what happened and what happened with this information, just as much as the information itself, right? So Gasecki, he had gone over the 36.5 receiving yard total in 0 out of 6 games this season on Thanksgiving. And he had 19 receiving yards. So that stayed true. And then 3.5 receptions line, he had only gone over that in 1 out of 6 games this season, and he only had 2 receptions. So that stayed true. But Noah Fant, guys, on Thanksgiving, his over-under was 11.5 on receiving yards. And he had 3 receptions. He had gone over the 1.5 reception line in 8 out of 9 games this season. He only had 1. So we'll see what happens today. And then that way we know, I'll have to go through these games and look to see how many other times throughout the year this has happened, right? But, it's fishy. It's fishy to me when I see something that because I don't see that a lot, right? Where somebody has gone over in 12 out of 12 games, like McCaffrey has gone over his receiving line today, 12 out of 12 games this season. It's not often that I see that. So it smells fishy. And with this game on Thanksgiving, in regards to Noah Fant, receiving yards and receptions, not only was it fishy, but it didn't happen. So we'll keep an eye out and see what happens today with McCaffrey, Yeah, I appreciate you guys for joining today. Let's just keep rocking on here. Now with alternate lines, I think that's probably a different case, right? Alternate lines, I mean, that's one thing. But when the line is set at 39.5 with McCaffrey, and he's gone over that in every game this season, you don't see that with a lot of props. I mean, I'm just browsing through it. Judy's gone over his current receiving line in 6 out of 11 games this season. Kittle, 3 out of 7. I mean, all of these guys today. McCaffrey rushing yards, 5 out of 12. Why is it, and I usually don't like to say, why is this line set like that? I try not to look at what the books are necessarily setting their lines to a whole lot. Because if it's true or not, I like to think that I like to think, even though I know I'm only one guy. I think having that confidence that you're better than the books is important. But so whenever I'm looking at these lines, you're admitting that the books are no more than you. And yeah, you're probably right. You're probably true. But I mean, realistically, yeah, you're right. But I feel like we need that confidence that we're better than the books, man. All right. So let's see here. Kittle, he's gone over his 48.5 receiving line in 3 out of 7 games this season. He's gone over that in 3 straight games. He's had 40-plus receiving yards in 4 out of 7 games this season, 30-plus receiving yards in 5 out of 7, 25-plus in 6 out of 7. He's gone over the 48.5 receiving line in 1 out of 2 career games against Cleveland. He's had a touchdown in 1 out of 2 career games against Cleveland. He's had more yards per catch at home than on the road in 7 out of 9 career seasons, which is a bad trend for Kittle today. And he has more yards per catch when his team wins or ties rather than loses in 7 out of 9 career seasons. So if you like San Francisco to win today, I think there's a better chance for Kittle to go over those receiving yards. But sounds like, hey, thanks, blessed up, P. That's if you think that San Francisco is going to win. Seems like there's some uncertainty out there about that. So I don't know about this Kittle yard pickup, but what about tight end touchdowns allowed by Cleveland? They've allowed 5 this year, which is middle of the pack. I think that may be the best chance that San Francisco has to, get into the end zone here. Now, wide receivers, Cleveland's have been somewhat vulnerable to, but running back position, Cleveland has defended against that running back position really good in regards to touchdowns allowed. So although McCaffrey has good touchdown history, and I think he can get it done against anybody, he's got his hands full today. I'm just a little unsure about San Francisco touchdown scores, to be quite honest with you. But I think McCaffrey obviously has to be in the conversation. Kittle and Jawan Jennings. I mean, they're pretty much in the conversation every week. But this week, man, I'm thinking maybe Kittle gets a touchdown but doesn't get his yardage. Kind of like Kelsey on Thanksgiving. But yeah, McCaffrey does have a touchdown in 3 out of 3 career games against Cleveland. I know I mentioned that 100 times, but yeah, give me. I'm not gonna. I can't go against you on this one, Ivan. The vibes have been too good. Let's get the Browns here, man. Plus, let's take them up to 6.5 instead of 5.5. Let's take them up to 6.5. I'm really just interested to see what happens in this game. Let's see, what other game do we have here? I know some other guys on the Not Move podcast are going to want to probably get on the airwaves here pretty soon. But yeah, Ivan, our blessed up Pete, this has just been a little bit more of a chilling show. Just hanging out a little bit more today and talking with you guys instead of breaking down the analytics because it was Thanksgiving week. I mean, I do have a lot of analytics here. What about Tua? Ivan, we talk about Tua rushing yard all the time. I was actually looking into that last night. I see that New Orleans ranks 11th best in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks. But look, Tua's line is over under 0.5. He's gone over that in 7 out of 11 games this season. I know. He's gone under that in 4 straight games. But he had 1 rushing yard in his only career game against New Orleans. He did not get a rushing touchdown with that rushing yard, in case you were wondering. But, historically, and with this season's data, man, Tua for a rushing yard, I like it. I wouldn't say like, right? But I got to lean towards, I know, man. Where's JB? I don't know, man. I'll let him know. Hey, JB, I'm going to let him know right now. If you're watching this live, people are looking for you. Yeah. Oh, he says on the way. Cool. Yeah, I love having you guys in the chat, letting us know your guys' thoughts. And like I said, man, I'm not here necessarily telling you guys what to do. I'm just hanging out with you guys and giving you some statistics. And I really do value everybody's outlook and opinions on things. So I think everybody from at least time to time can come up with a piece of information that's just like, whoa, I didn't think about that, you know? I think Shador Sanders has an okay game today, says Blessed Up P. That he played in college in Colorado. It's cold, windy, and snowy, and he should be used to it compared to Purdy. Case in point right there, man. I didn't even think about that. 100%. 100%, man. And the fact that Purdy came back from an injury, the cold weather may affect his game. Don't be surprised if he if he leaves the game. Hot take. Oh, I love the hot take, man. I got a buddy that does a bunch of hot takes, and yeah, dude, it's great, dude. That'd be. I don't wish injury on anybody. Okay, I don't wish injury on anybody, but if you call this, you know, be pretty crazy. I'm gonna look into Tua and Trevor Lawrence and CJ for rushing. I mean, I think the Tua rushing yard is going to be a sweat, man. But look, Tua, how many times, you know, man, can you pick up a rushing yard? I guess he picked up in his first 7 games this season, picked up a rushing yard in every game, and now 4 games in a row, not. What is going on, to? Oh no, I'm mistaken. Um, why did I have that in my notes here? So he's gone under. He's actually only gone under the one rushing yard or 0.5 rushing yards in the last 2 games. He actually picked one up against Baltimore. So I'm mistaken on that. But to begin the season, he was 2-3, 3-4, 4-5, 5-6, 6-7 to picking up that one rushing yard. Can't believe I just took up 5 minutes of your guys' time to talk about Tua over or under one rushing yard. You know who I'm actually excited to see in this game is Devin Neal, running back for New Orleans, with Kamara being out. I got a lot of friends that are Kansas Jayhawks football fans, and I know Devin Neal used to play for Kansas, so be fun to see what he does today. Miami does have a bad rush defense. You know, they've allowed the 4th most rushing yards to running backs. They rank 29th in rushing yards allowed per game, so they're bad against the run. I do want to mention, though, that the Saints have allowed the 9th most 20-plus yard rushing gains this season, and Achane has 9 20-plus yard rushing gains. Achane has gone over his 80.5 rushing line in 5 out of 11 games this season. And even if you took that to 70-plus for Achane, you're still looking at 5 out of 11. But once we get to 60-plus rushing yards for Achane, we start seeing 8 out of 11. 50-plus rushing yards, 9 out of 11. He's never played against the Saints, but I think Achane, is in a good spot today. At least for the yardage. Just because of his history this season, though, I would feel more comfortable taking it to 60-plus to at least getting that 8 out of 11 success rate instead of 5 out of 11 for his normal rushing line. And then what about running back touchdowns allowed by New Orleans? Rushing touchdowns, about middle of the pack. Receiving touchdowns allowed by New Orleans to running backs because he is, a good pass-catching running back. They've allowed 2 middle of the pack. So, we'll be surprised to see Achane see the end zone today and have a pretty decent game here in this one. Miami does have a better red zone attempts per game advantage and red zone conversion rate advantage than New Orleans. So I do expect Miami to get in the red zone a little bit more than New Orleans today. I got to go with Miami covering in this one. -5.5. They're better against the spread, not just throughout the season, but in the situation as well. They're 1-1 against the spread as a home favorite compared to New Orleans, who's 2-3 against the spread as a road underdog. I do want to mention that New Orleans is much weaker against the run than they are the pass relative to yardage allowed compared to other teams in the league. But the thing about New Orleans is, although they rank ninth in passing yards allowed per games, which is good, they've allowed the eighth most 40-plus yard receptions this season. And Waddle, I've already talked about him a little bit earlier in the show, but Waddle has 3 40-plus yard receptions this season, whereas nobody else, Achane, Malik Washington, Ikine, and Darren Waller have all not had a 40-plus yard reception. So I think that adds to Waddle's value here. If you like to Waddle for receiving yards, once again, he's had 92 receiving yards off 10 receptions in his only career game against the Saints, and he did score a touchdown in that game. The Saints have specifically been pretty good against that wide receiver position in regards to limiting yardage this season, but Waddle has hit his over the 70.5 receiving line in 5 out of 11 games this season, 60-plus in 6 out of 11 games this season. I think that 60-plus sounds pretty good. 50-plus, you're looking at 7 out of 11 times this season. 40-plus, 8 out of 11. 30-plus, 10 out of 11. But, yeah, I like the fact that, he's had 92 receiving yards in his only career game against the Saints. Let's see. I have a great trend for that Saints-Dolphin game. Saints are 1-10 against the spread in the first quarter. Wow. Yo, what's up, JB?
Chilling, man, chilling.
JB, you want to take it over for a second while I take a station identification break?
Sure, yeah. I guess, yeah.
All right, thanks, man. I'll be right back, man. Give me 5 minutes tops. Maybe we can go over. The floor is yours. I'll be back within 5 minutes. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
All
man.
right. So let's see. Let me mute this. That way we ain't got no echo. All right. I don't really even know. What's up, Blessed to P, Bando, everybody in the club, get man. NFL Sunday. I'm ready. Blessed up. What's up, my guy? I seen Avi was out there too for a little bit. Man, Browns. I like, dude. Blessed up, man. I like the Browns, and that's for some reason. I like the Browns today. I wasn't really too ready for this. To be honest with you guys. Pick 2: Allen, Johnson, Gainwell, Wilson, Pierce. We're gonna go Gainwell. Man. Gainwell and Johnson, maybe. The under is cashing 7 straight games since. Wow. What's up, Southgate? Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, I got Cleveland over San Fran. You're talking about the New Orleans game. I like New Orleans in this game. To be honest with you, I don't really know why. I just do. I just got on feelings. That is really amazing, though, what you just said about them. Oh, shoot, my phone's about that. Believeland. Yes, I got Believeland. The Saints. I'm gonna go with the Saints as well. Um, as my pick versus the Dolphins. Um, I don't know. It's that time of the year, end of the year. Um, Saints probably muster up another win or two by the time everything's said and done. Um, yeah. I know it's kind of off topic, but what do you guys think of Tyreek Hill going home, coming back to Kansas City? I love it. You guys, we are the Not Move Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. You guys are over on Facebook, Twitter, Playback, um, YouTube, Twitch, Kick. Bro, it's like there ain't no place that we ain't. We got that NFL jersey raffle, you guys. It's $10 a slot. Get you up in there. Doesn't Casey have enough wide receivers? I don't. Jeez. Kansas City just has players. They don't have playmakers, right? They don't have weapons, right? But yeah, we have the not moved dash shop.fourthwall.com. Let's go in there. We got plenty of merch on merch. Holiday seasons. It's cold out. Get your merch. Stay warm. Get your snuggie. Get your woolly. You know, it's about that time. I know over here it's already started snowing in Kansas City. You guys get warm. Whoa. That's crazy. JB, you think the Raiders cover 9.5, 10-point spread? Who do the Raiders even play today? Who even play today? Chargers? No. No, not at all. They're not covering the spread at all on that. I don't personally think.
Yeah, there's a couple of teams that I just can't touch, man. The Raiders are one of
Yeah.
them, and I think the Jets are probably another one. Um, what game have we not covered a lot of? Let me just look real quick. You know, Darnold facing his former team today. Minnesota at Seattle. Seattle leads the all-time series 13-7 against Minnesota. Minnesota's won 2 games in a row against Seattle. Darnold technically has a 0-2 career record against the Vikings.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, because he played with another team before the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
You think there's any way, Minnesota? I mean, I don't think anybody's expecting Minnesota to win today with that backup quarterback they got in there. I don't know much about him.
Nobody really does.
Max Brosmer, but man, JJ McCarthy. I lost my my survivor pick to Minnesota. In Minnesota, like a couple weeks ago, Minnesota is terrible with McCarthy. At least McCarthy was just missing guys left and right. So I don't think it can get much worse with this backup in here.
Like,
today.
yeah, you're probably right on that. I just want to know, like, if he's that bad looking like in a game action, I mean, did he look that bad in practice?
It's just tough to go with Minnesota Viking props in this one, like receiving props, because of the unknown variable with that quarterback. But, these guys do have some good touchdown history. Aaron Jones, 2 out of 4 career games against Seattle, he's had 2+ touchdowns. He are exactly 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson has had 1+ touchdown in 2 out of 3 career games against Seattle. He's had 2 touchdowns in 1 out of 3 career games against them. Addison has a touchdown in 1 out of 1 career game against Seattle. Hawkinson has exactly 2 touchdowns in 1 out of 2 career games against Seattle. So I think, if he can put the ball in their hands, man, they could have some solid games. I mean, I do expect Seattle to win this one. I really expect Seattle to cover too. I got to put Minnesota up there on that list of teams I can't touch. I think it's more so because of McCarthy, but we'll see about
Yeah.
Brosford. It's tough even taking player props on the Viking side today. Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens. Is this a game where everybody stays away from Vikings props and just everybody just has a great game? Otis. Lots of rushing yards in Niners-Browns game. Snow possible at 20-mile-per-hour winds.
Yeah.
70+ rush for Judkins and McCaffrey with 100 combined. I was leaning more towards McCaffrey receiving yards. Even in that bad weather, I think they'll just, on those passing plays, continue to dump the ball to McCaffrey. But here's the thing about McCaffrey, right? His receiving line is at 39.5, which he's gone over that in every single game this season. And something just smells fishy about that, There was a game on Thanksgiving, and I talked about this just a few minutes ago, Otis. There was a game on Thanksgiving. Noah Fant, I think it was. Yeah, I'm reading my notes here. He had gone over the 11.5 receiving line in 8 out of 9 games this season, and he did not go over that line on Thanksgiving. And I feel like this is a similar situation. I'm really interested to see if McCaffrey goes over this line. Statistically, it looks great, but something smells fishy. I'm excited to see, Shador Sanders. Ivan mentioned that I know you're a San Francisco fan, Otis, but Ivan was mentioning, Shador Sanders used to play college ball at Colorado. He's used to this cold weather, probably a little bit more than Purdy is. A lot of people think Cleveland take this game today. What do you think, Otis? I got to lean towards Cleveland covering the +6.5. I think they're 5.5-point dogs. We'll take it up to 6.5. Oh, Buffalo at Pittsburgh. I mean, this is a huge game. Buffalo at Pittsburgh. I mean, Buffalo 7-4 record. Pittsburgh 6-5. Pittsburgh does lead the all-time series 17-13 against Buffalo. Buffalo's won the last 4 out of 5 meetings. Josh Allen does have a 4-1 career record against Pittsburgh, whereas Rodgers is 3-4 against the Bills. We lost to them by a missed field goal last time. I think we win by that field goal this time, says Otis. And then I noticed that the Browns have won. We'll go back to that Buffalo-Pittsburgh game. I'm interested on your take on that one, JB, since it's the AFC. But Cleveland has won 8 out of 10 all-time games against San Francisco when Cleveland's the home team. Cleveland has also beaten San Francisco 4 times in a row when Cleveland was the home team, and the home team has won the past 5 meetings between these teams. It's actually surprising that Cleveland has a 13-8 all-time career history record against San Francisco. What are you thinking about this Buffalo and Pittsburgh game, JB? I do have some props I want to go over in this one, but I want to know your thoughts real quick. Who do you see coming away with this one? Pittsburgh and Buffalo.
I am going to go with Buffalo, man. Rogers, I believe, has he broke his feelings. Broke his wrist. I think he's in a cast. I just don't see them doing it, man. Gotta give me Buffalo. I know both of these teams are kind of wishy washy. Both of them kind of up in the air. Can't really decipher and choose like which one's gonna win, right? Like which one, like it. That's the hard part with these two. But I'm gonna go with Buffalo. Say Buffalo gets it right. Pittsburgh, they're on outside looking in, trying to get in.
Let's talk about James Cook first and foremost. Pittsburgh ranks 15th in rushing yards allowed per game. Pittsburgh ranks 32nd. They are the worst team against the pass in regards to passing yards allowed per game. Buffalo is a better rushing team in regards to rushing yards per game. Buffalo also calls a high percentage of rushing plays. So that makes me look into James Cook rushing yards over under 83.5. He's gone over that line in 7 out of 11 games this season. And even if you guys wanted to take that down to 60-plus rushing yards for James Cook, he's gone over that the same amount of times as he's gone over 83.5. So just in that regard, if I were to take James Cook down from 83.5, I would take him all the way down to 50-plus rushing yards. He's gone over that in 8 out of 11 times this season. 40-plus rushing yards in all 11 games this season. He's actually had 100-plus rushing yards in 6 out of 11 games this year. But he has never gone over the 83.5 rushing line in any career games against Pittsburgh. He's played them in 2 games, had 31 and 79 rushing yards. And I noticed that it seems like James Cook gets a bulk. Now, he's had a touchdown in 1 out of 2 career games against Pittsburgh, but it seems like James Cook has a bulk of his rushing touchdowns when the margin of victory is 15 points or greater. So it seems like there is some sort of a correlation between James Cook rushing touchdowns and blowout victories. But he's had more yards per carry in every season that he's played in when his team wins. And then he also has many more rushing touchdowns when his team wins than when his team loses throughout history. So if Buffalo does win this game, I think that there's a stronger likelihood that James Cook goes over the rushing yards. But let's go look at James Cook receiving yards. I mentioned that Pittsburgh is bad against the pass, but they've done actually pretty decently against defending against the receiving yards and receptions to running backs. But let's look at James Cook, over under 12.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that line in 5 out of 11 games this season. He's gone over that 12.5 receiving line in 3 straight games. He's had 10-plus receiving yards in 7 out of 11 games this season. He's never gone over the 12.5 receiving yard line in any career game against Pittsburgh. He has more yards per catch on grass than turf in 3 out of 4 seasons, which is a good trend since this game is being played on grass. And then he has more yards per catch when his team wins or ties rather than loses in 3 out of 4 seasons. And he has more yards per catch at home than on the road in 3 out of 4 career seasons, which is a bad trend. James Cook is just not somebody who I'm thinking too highly of today. Sam Darnold 9-0 straight up and 7-2 against the spread, says Blessed Up P.
Kind of crazy if you're not feeling too highly on him. With him playing I think he can have a good day against Pittsburgh on the ground. Cook. I think James is going to cook.
I like what James Cook has been doing this year. I just don't necessarily like this history that he has against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And so if I don't think James Cook has a good day, that instantly makes me look for Josh Allen, right? So if Cook doesn't have a good day rushing, what about Josh Allen? Over under 28.5 rushing yards. Josh Allen's gone over that in 7 out of 11 games this season. If we took that to 20 plus rushing yards, he's gone over that in 9 out of 11 games this season. Josh Allen has had he's gone over the 28.5 rushing yard line in 3 out of 5 career games against Pittsburgh, and had exactly and he had exactly 28 rushing yards in the games that he didn't. So if we take that hook off, instead of 28.5, if we can get it to over 27.5, he has gone over that line in 5 out of 5. So all 5 career games against Pittsburgh. He's had more yards per carry in every season that he plays in when his team loses than when his team wins. And this is his 8th season. However, he has way more rushing touchdowns in wins than losses throughout his career. So if Buffalo wins, I like Josh Allen anytime touchdown. If Buffalo loses, I think there is a stronger likelihood that Josh Allen gets 29 plus rushing yards. So I think he could do both. And I just want to see what Pittsburgh has allowed rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks this season. They've allowed 3. So they're not great nor terrible at defending against rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks. I'd say, just kind of depends on the game script that you guys are going with. My gut's telling me Pittsburgh gets this for some reason. But let's talk about Josh Allen passing yards too, because Pittsburgh, once again, they've allowed the most passing yards per game than any team in the NFL. Josh Allen has gone over the 233.5 passing yards in 6 out of 11 games this season. He's gone over that line in 4 straight games. He's had 200-plus passing yards in 8 out of 11 games this season. He's gone over his 233.5 passing yard total in 3 out of 5 career games against Pittsburgh. He's had 200-plus in 4 out of 5 career games against Pittsburgh. He has averaged more yards per pass attempt in games that his team wins or ties rather than loses in every season that he's played in. And this is his 8th season. Once again, if Buffalo wins this game today, I like Josh Allen over the passing yards and Josh Allen anytime touchdown. If they lose, I lean more towards the rushing yards for Josh Allen going over. Although I could see all of that hitting if, Buffalo wins. Just the statistics tell me that there's a stronger likelihood that Josh Allen reaches 29-plus rushing yards if Buffalo loses. Ivan said something about the pass attempts versus Steelers today. Kincaid, is he back? So now is a good time for us to go look at injury updates to see if we have any injury updates. Let's go take a look. Throughout the entire league, is there anything that is popping out to us here? Olave expected back. Just seeing if there's anybody ruled out. Okay, here's some news. Tyler Warren, tied in for the Colts, is in line to play against the Texans today due to an illness. He was questionable. He still technically is, but I'm seeing that he's in line to play today. That's new news to me. Dalton Kincaid, still questionable due to a hamstring issue. Is this a later game? Yeah, so this game is at 4:25 p.m. Eastern time, the Buffalo and Pittsburgh game. That's definitely some news worth monitoring there. I have mentioned in previous shows that just because Kincaid is out doesn't mean that, Dawson Knox turns into this all elusive superstar. However, Pittsburgh has been vulnerable to, receiving yards and receptions allowed to tight ends this season. And it's not just Knox; it's the other guy too. They got another tight end that I can't think of at the top of my head, who's getting a little bit of work as well. But I remember Kincaid missed a game earlier this year, and Buffalo played on prime time, and I think they were going up against a weak tight end defense. And everybody was naturally gravitating towards Dawson Knox. And I looked at the games where Kincaid hadn't played, and Knox really his statistics really they didn't skyrocket because of Knox's absence, or excuse me, Kincaid's absence. Here's where I think Pittsburgh absolutely has to take advantage of Buffalo. It's that rushing attack. Jaylen Warren or Gainwell, Buffalo ranks 30th in rushing yards allowed per game. They've allowed the fourth most 20-plus yard rushing gains, the second most 40-plus yard rushing gains. I think that's where Pittsburgh has to attack Buffalo. And then get DK Metcalf involved a little bit. He has played one career game against Buffalo and scored a touchdown in that game. He had 108 receiving yards in his only career game against Buffalo. 7 receptions in his only career game against Buffalo. I think that's somebody that's got to do good if Pittsburgh trails in this game. That's somebody, Pittsburgh's got to look for. But yeah, man, I mean, I didn't look up Jaylen Warren or Gainwell statistics a whole lot for this one. But if you like Pittsburgh in this game, man, that's where Buffalo's vulnerable. Overall, I do give Buffalo a big passing advantage, a good-sized rushing advantage, a slight third down conversion advantage, a big red zone attempts per game advantage. But here we are with Pittsburgh, much like Cleveland. Pittsburgh has a good-sized sacks on the quarterback advantage and a big turnover differential advantage. They also have a slight red zone conversion advantage when they are in the red zone. They're converting touchdowns better than Buffalo, and Buffalo's defense is allowing teams to convert touchdowns a little bit more than Pittsburgh's defense. I don't think Pittsburgh looks too bad here. Also, Buffalo's 2-3 against the spread as a road favorite, whereas Pittsburgh's 1-1 against the spread as a home underdog. So technically, Pittsburgh has a better record against the spread as a home dog than Buffalo does as a road favorite this season. I'm thinking Pittsburgh covers. Yeah, then give me the Chargers there. It's a cover.
Yeah, definitely
the Raiders. Are we on the same page there, JB?
Yeah, Chargers over the Raiders. I like the Bills though over Pittsburgh.
What about Carolina, JB, and the Rams?
Serious?
Do I like Metcalf, says Blessed Up P? Out of all the pass catchers for Pittsburgh, yes. Yeah, it's what makes most sense is what I should say. It's easy for anybody to say, yeah, I like Metcalf the best, right? But when I'm looking at how Buffalo defends against the tight end position, they've allowed the fewest receiving yards to tight ends and the fewest receptions. They've allowed the third fewest receiving yards to running backs and seventh fewest receptions to running backs. So that leaves us with their wide receiver defense, which they were not in the top 12 or so in defending against that this season. So I think when Pittsburgh's passing the ball, it makes the most sense for them to look for wide receivers. And Metcalf has gone over the 46.5 receiving line in 6 out of 11 games this season. 108 receiving yards in his only career game against Buffalo. So yeah, I do like Metcalf. Seattle. Yeah. So JB, do you think there's any possibility that Carolina upsets the Rams today? And almost a must-win game for Carolina, right?
I think it is a must-win, but no, I don't think there's a possibility. I think the Rams are just too freaking good, man.
That's where I was leaning towards. I think it was when we were talking about that game. Rams as well. Here's a game we haven't talked about at all. Arizona at Tampa Bay. The all-time series is tied between these teams, 11-11. Tampa Bay has won 2 games in a row against Arizona. Arizona is actually 3-1 against the spread as a road underdog this season, guys. And Tampa Bay is 1-2 against the spread as a home favorite. Arizona, both of these teams have lost 3 games in a row. Tampa Bay does have a little bit more to play for. Arizona's 3-8 on the season, and Tampa Bay is 6-5. I noticed that Tampa Bay has allowed the 4th most 20-plus yard receptions and the 4th most 40-plus yard receptions. And Michael Wilson has 6 20-plus yard receptions this season, 1 40-plus yard reception. McBride, 6 20-plus yard receptions. Marvin Harrison, 8 20-yard plus receptions, 2 40-plus yard receptions this season. He's back today. Is he supposed to be back, Marvin Harrison? I think he's somebody to look for in this game. Dude, Jacoby Brissett is playing great, at least with his passing yards. When I'm looking at his passing yards this season, I mean, he hasn't thrown below 250-plus passing yards in a game this season, and Tampa Bay ranks 27th in passing yards allowed per game. This guy is absolutely on my radar. Jacoby Brissett, passing yards. 261.5 is what it was listed at. I've seen that he's gone over that in 4 out of 6 times this season where he's had 2+ passing attempts in a game. But yeah, I think, Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. are guys to consider here. Michael Wilson, he's only gone over the 54.5 receiving yards in 3 out of 11 games this season, whereas Marvin Harrison's gone over his 52.5 receiving yards in 5 out of 9 games this season. I got to lean more towards Marvin Harrison just because of his success rate this season. Trey McBride, I think, has his hands a little bit full today. In his only career game against Tampa Bay, he had 17 receiving yards and 3 receptions and did not score a touchdown. Tampa Bay also ranks 8th best in receiving yards allowed to tight ends. So Tampa Bay is more vulnerable to receiving yards allowed to wide receivers, receptions allowed to wide receivers. Now, if you can find an Arizona, if for some reason you guys like an Arizona Cardinal to get receiving yards today for a running back, Tampa Bay has allowed the most receiving yards to running backs this season. Arizona doesn't have a terrific pass defense either. Both of these teams are better against the rush relative to other teams in the league. Any thoughts on Ibuka today, JB, Chris Godwin, even Tez Johnson?
Probably Buka, man. Man. Baker's still out, huh?
He's supposed to play is the last that I saw.
I
Um,
don't like what I've seen from him after he got injured. Obviously, I think if it gets re-aggravated again, you're looking at a hole, and they're in trouble. I think they could be in big trouble.
we are, let's cash everything today, Ivan. Let's cash everything today. Mariota has lost 8 in a row when listed as an underdog. See, Ivan comes into the chat here with great statistics, man.
Drops that knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh man, about 20 minutes.
Right on. Yeah, I think Bryce Young was on my radar today, if I'm not mistaken, Ivan. Let me go take a look at that Carolina game. Bryce Young, over under 8.5 rushing yards. Now, the Rams have allowed the 12th fewest rushing yards to quarterbacks this season, so I don't know about that, man. Carolina, I think I would have to look at his trends and everything, Bryce Young. Let me see if I have anything from last week. Bryce Young. I don't know how much I really like that prop. I liked it more so last week, I think it was. Maybe the week before. Just not a spot I'm specifically looking for today. Mariota has lost 8 in a row when listed as an underdog. Yeah, we haven't touched on that Broncos game at all. I think that's what we'll do and then call it a show. What do you guys like the most of in chat? If you could let us know. Do you guys like the history? What's most valuable? The splits, road versus home splits, turf versus grass splits, warm weather versus cold weather splits. Are those your guys' favorite information about the show? That's what really I think is going to be, beneficial moving forward. In retrospect, I wish I would have done all that research in the off season. But I think that information is what really. I mean, I remember on Thanksgiving, right? There was just one prop. I think it was like a quarterback's rushing yards. And I said that I think it was Caleb Williams. I said if the Bears win, I like him to go under rushing yards. If the Bears lose, I like him to go over because of those splits. And Bears won and he went under. So I think those splits are really important. But yeah, let's talk about that Denver game a little bit here.
Yeah.
And then call it a show. Thanks for bearing with me today, guys. With it being Thanksgiving week and everything, time was real limited on information. But we still talked about some good stuff here today. Had some fun, a little bit more fun. Okay, Denver. The all-time series is tied 8-8 between these two teams, Denver and Washington. The Commanders, since they changed their name to the Commanders, they have a 1-0 all-time record against Denver. Last that I checked, Denver's favored by 6.5, over under 43.5. These teams have gone under the 43.5 in 6 of their last 10 meetings. So Denver is 3-8 to the over this season, but don't I'm torn if this game goes over or not because I see Denver's 3-8 to the over, and I'm like, that makes sense. They're a good defensive team, but they're 1-0 to the over as a road favorite. Washington is 5-1 to the over this season, but they're 2-0 to the over as a home underdog. I think. Why do I feel like this game goes over, JB? What do you think? Do you think there's 44 plus total points? Statistics tell me maybe not so, but I'm looking into it a little bit more. I don't know. What do you think, JB?
Maybe on the Denver side, maybe Denver scores it. I think it's going to be lopsided. I think Denver's just going to mollywop Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they stand a chance, to be honest with you. And that's just being polite.
Yeah. My feeling is that this game goes over, but the statistics tell me it goes under for the most part. So that's something that I'm not touching, the over under in this one. Denver's won 8 games in a row. Washington has lost 6 games in a row. I give Denver a big passing advantage. I don't actually give anybody a clear rushing advantage, but considering that Jaden Daniels is out, I'll probably give Denver a slight rushing advantage here today. Denver, slight third down conversion advantage, big red zone attempts per game advantage, big sacks on the quarterback advantage, and a good sized turnover differential advantage. I don't see how Denver loses this game, JB. You too? Are we in the same boat?
Yeah, if they do, which I hope they do, it'd be awesome. It'd be really awesome. That would but there's again I don't see any possibility of that happening.
Washington's vulnerable to the run. They're vulnerable to the pass. They do not have a good defense. Denver, I think they can just kind of do whatever they want to in this one.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have their way with them.
I think shop is pretty much open for all Bronco props. I'd probably have to lean more towards rushing props for the Broncos. I could see them kind of running away with this one. But they got a rookie as their, lead back, RJ Harvey. He's only gone over his rushing line in 2 out of 11 games this season, 53.5, which is not good, but he should. My guess is that he would get a higher workload today, but they got McLaughlin listed at over under 24.5. So I think McLaughlin's going to eat into his workload a little bit, and I think that line is maybe a little too high for Harvey.
Yeah. It probably is. To be honest with you.
I really like Franklin, man. When I'm looking at Broncos, Denver's red zone targets, I know earlier this year Franklin led the Broncos in red zone targets, and he still does. He's near the top of the league. I don't hear a whole lot of people talking about Troy Franklin, and I think that's somebody that's going under the radar right now for this Broncos team. Now, he's only gone over the 47.5 receiving yards in 4 out of 11 games this season, but if we took that to 40+, we're looking at 6 out of 11 games this season. But I'm not necessarily talking about his receiving yards. I'm more so maybe interested in an anytime touchdown for him since he is the Broncos' top red zone target. And I see Broncos. I think the Broncos will have plenty of red zone opportunities today, and I think they'll have a good chance at converting touchdowns when they enter the red zone. Let's go see where Washington's most vulnerable. They rank 5th worst in receiving touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. Let's go see some other where Washington's vulnerable. 8 rushing touchdowns to running backs, which is a little below league average. A little Not good, I should say. I mean, tight ends, they've allowed the third most receiving touchdowns to tight ends. So, what about a rushing touchdown for Bo Nix, possibly? They've only allowed one rushing touchdown to a quarterback. So, I'd maybe be a little bit weary about Bo Nix getting in today for a touchdown. I don't have Bo Nix's splits in front of me either. Like road versus away, home, and grass versus turf. I would look at you guys have time to look into that stuff before that game tonight. I think that could be some valuable information. I like to view that on ESPN.com. Sutton, he's gone over his receiving line 49.5 in 7 out of 11 games this season, compared to Franklin going over his in 4 out of 11. So receiving yards, I'd probably lean more towards Sutton. I didn't, Sutton versus Washington. Let me see if he's played any games against Washington. He had 40 and 66 receiving yards in 2 career games against Washington. So that sounds about right. Maybe taking him down to 40 plus. But he's gone over 40 plus the same amount as he's gone over the 49.5 plus this season. But that history against Washington makes me feel more comfortable at taking Sutton for 40 plus receiving yards. So I do think Sutton has a better chance to hit 40 plus receiving yards than Franklin does, but I think Franklin has a better chance of getting a touchdown. I would also look to see who on the Broncos has the most 40 plus yard receptions this season. Same with believe it or not, the Broncos have allowed the third most 40 plus yard receptions too. So I think if Washington hangs around in this one, they're going to need a big play or two from somebody in that passing game. Debo's had a 40 plus, or excuse me, Terry McLaurin had 1 40 plus yard receiving game this season. Debo hasn't had any, but he's had 6 20 plus yard receptions, and Denver hasn't allowed a bunch of those. So really, it's the 40 plus yard receptions that I'm looking for Washington. Those explosive plays and through the air for Washington is how I think they could surprise people in this one. And I really think that's where it's at. I do want to mention real quick, Mariota, 26.5 rushing yards. He's gone over that line in 4 out of 6 games this season. He's had 20-plus rushing yards in all 6 games this season. Now, Denver does rank second best in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks, but there's a good trend there. Also, Krosky Merritt, 24.5 rushing yards. He's gone over that line in 10 out of 11 games this season. He had 17 rushing yards in the game that he didn't go over. Denver, once again, good rush defense, good at limiting running backs, rushing yards, but 10 out of 11. Let's put it this way: if McCaffrey has 40 plus receiving yards today, I think Krosky Merritt gets 25 plus rushing yards. But if McCaffrey does not have those 40 plus receiving yards today, thinking maybe I think McCaffrey may be in a little bit different of a situation than Krosky Merritt, but still, give me Krosky Merritt to go under the rushing yards if McCaffrey doesn't have 40 plus receiving yards today. I know that's a completely different game and all that, but yeah, JB, I was telling people that I was really trying to find some time, and we might not be able to do it this season, right? Hopefully I do, but to analyze what went right and what went wrong in a lot of these games, that I'm talking about here, which way I'm leaning, and then what
the outcome was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something that we definitely have to bring to the table here. So
See where the stats are, man.
I think even maybe on like Tuesday, I think that'd be a good time for that. On every Tuesday, just kind of seeing which way the stats were telling us to go and doing a little recap.
All right. Yeah.
I know you were trying to get me to do that earlier this season, but I feel like now it's just like we have to. So
Well, I'm thinking. I don't think I was trying to get you to do it like earlier. This, I think it was more so of just me trying to get like, because at that point there's not really a lot of like NFL week 1, week 2, week 3. There's not a lot of data,
mhm.
for you to go off of. So
Yeah.
in that same aspect, there wouldn't be a lot of data to go off of. You'd be like, "Oh, I'm 3-2." Like, okay, congratulations. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
people, like it'd be a lot better, I think, and it would look a lot better in any aspect, really, if we were just like, yo, uh, through weeks 12, 106-3.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but
Because
yeah,
I absolutely want to go back and look at all these games where players have gone over this line in 12 out of all 12 games this season and see how many
yeah,
times
man,
it's hit versus it hasn't,
yeah, man,
and
that'd be
a
cool.
bunch of other stuff. So
So,
yeah, yeah, dude, I'm surprisingly most interested about San Francisco at Cleveland today. I don't really pay attention to either of these teams, but just really
Cleveland.
looking forward to it today. Being a Rockies fan, yeah, I mean, I know Shador Sanders. I like Shador Sanders. And being a Cowboys fan, I want to see Shador Sanders do good. Being Deion's son and everything, I grew up watching Deion Sanders, so
Right, right.
I want to see how Shador does today. Anyways,
Yeah, I'm excited to see him. He's he played college ball not too far from here. But I would like to see him succeed. Um, especially with the way that everything transpired with his draft and everything like that. And since then, I'd really like to see him succeed. I'd really like to see him succeed someplace else too. Like just a total slap in all faces. That's what I would really like to see. But hey,
yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. We'll break down the Giants versus New England Patriots game for tomorrow night. We'll break that down tomorrow. And I'm trying to think just like a last question that I have for you. JB, who do you think is a player that people are going to be high on today that underperforms, that does not do well?
Jonathan Taylor.
Hmm. I'm gonna go with shoot. On the spot, I don't know, man. I think it was James Cook that I was a little weary about. Give me
Yep,
James
yep,
Cook.
yep.
And then what about a sleeper player that maybe is going to go off and people are not expecting it?
Oh man.
Mine's gonna,
Um.
mine's gonna be Devin Neal, running back for the Saints.
Mm,
He used to play.
mm.
He's a rookie. Used to play for the Kansas Jayhawks, and with Kamara being out today, he's got that lead running back role against I think a pretty vulnerable Miami rush defense.
I'm going to say the third string quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Sounds good, man. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And also, thanks for our sponsors BetUS, MyBookie.ag, Walmart.com, Open Goal, the MLB and NFL Pro Shops, and W Energy Drinks. JB, did you have anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah. Um. Yeah, guys. You guys can go on over to that not move dash fourth wall dot or dash shop dot fourthwall.com. Get all your merch, or not move podcast merch. Use promo code not move, receive 10% off. If you guys go and follow us on Twitch and become a subscriber over there, you guys receive an additional 5% off on top of the 10. Stack it, get you a 15. Um, Also, guys, we got a event going on for NFL jerseys. There is a 10 bones get you in the door, and you can get as many slots as you want. Um, I gotta watch the verbiage in a lot of places, but yeah. So you guys catch the drift, catch the drift. If not, we'll be making more announcements. Yeah, dark jersey. Hey,
An
any type of
alligator
jersey,
jersey
bro.
too.
You win. Winner gets to pick any jersey, any team, whatever you want. You know what I'm saying? Um, so enter as many times as you guys want. If you guys scroll all the way down to the very bottom, it's in the donation box. Says thank you for your support. Enter in, or you guys can Venmo at Not Moved. Make sure you guys drop your handle name, or what platform you're from, and that way we can put you up on the wheel. Bettors.
JB, do we have other people coming on now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So they may be in tune with the injury updates if I didn't cover any of them. I know we have some last minute ones, and then um, can we all give Blessed Up P a round of applause? I mean, thank you so much for giving
Yeah,
us those
man.
statistics, man. Oh, like every week you're in here dropping statistics for us, so we really appreciate it, man. Not just you being here and tuning in, but and hanging out with us, but definitely those statistics as well. So thanks, Blessed Up P, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Good luck today. Have a great day, and take care.
This non-casual podcast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or reused without the authorized written consent of the Not Move Podcast Network. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.